có một cái truyền thống cần phải giữ. Ít nhất thì ở VCS thì team mình phải dậm chân tại chỗ, tức là phải cố gắng giữ vị trí top 1.
Đánh offline khiến em cảm giác rất là vui và hưng phấn.
Thi đấu là như những gì tụi em làm ở trong đấu tập thôi, thì cái chiến thắng của tụi em chắc chắn là 100%.
Dự định mà tụi mình muốn chiến thắng ở trong playoff thì không có dự định gì cả, chỉ có luyện tập rồi mình gặp ai thì mình lụm thôi.
Em luôn là cái đội tuyển mà em nghĩ là cái phong độ xuyên suốt của họ luôn cao như vậy, chắc chắn họ là một cái hòn đá mà tụi em phải vượt qua.
Mọi người hãy đón xem trong phần playoff sắp tới tụi mình sẽ trình diễn như thế nào nhé.
Welcome back, everybody, for the second day of VCS Spring 2023 playoffs. We have an absolute banger here for you tonight as SBTC takes on the Wales for farmyard supremacy. My name is Carrix. With me is the ever-lovely Marbinogi and the triumphantly returning Clockwork. We've missed you all, Splitmate, and I'm so glad to have you back. How are the two of you tonight?
Clockwork came back to steal my Wales thunder. They got second. I've been the Wales fangirl all split, and now he's come along to be the Wales fanboy, and I have to deal with the chickens. Now the chickens are at least exciting because Emperor is always exciting, but
Clockwork, how are you?
Okay, there's a lot of whales, so we can share the bounty. I'm perfectly so excited to be here again. I missed, of course, a bit of the split, so I might be rusty, but Rusty is a great caster, so maybe it's an upgrade.
Really playing to the two Australians on the broadcast. He's had to shout out the Australian that's a lot better than us. But anyway, let's get into our matchup, because this is a matchup we've actually seen an odd amount of times this split so far. Because, of course, they played their two regular season series. But if we bring up the standings, if you've got them from the end of the split, which you do, you'll notice that those are at the same series score, which means they actually had to play a tiebreaker series. And Marby, of those three series, how did they go?
So for both these series, we actually sort of saw one was a delayed series because we had that really abysmal first day of the split where tech issues just out the wazoo. So that came in. And so when our first matchup happened, it was a little bit weird, but Team Wales absolutely crushed SBTC. Then they meet later on in this second round robin. SBTC absolutely smashed Wales. Pretty dominant showing out of the bot lane from Slater in particular. When we came to the third matchup for second, it was a lot closer. It was a bit of back and forth, but Wales looked pretty comfortable the entire time. The game they ended up losing in that 2-1 came off a little bit of early game shenanigans that they couldn't quite recover from. So, and a bit of draft problems, which has been a plague of Wales throughout the split. So these teams definitely know how to beat the other. They can also play quite close, and with our most recent matchup, it is a close matchup with a slight Wales edge.
That's interesting stuff, because I want to go straight over to you, Clockwork, to talk about the Wales. You have called them, and I'm looking at our notes here, the best mid-game team in the VCS, which is really high praise because Garm often thrives in the mid-game as well. But you think they're better. You need to justify that for me.
Right. Okay. So this is, of course, referring to the second half of the split. This is what I looked at because the meta changed in the middle. And that's where Wales really picked up pace, especially from in the side lanes. Both side lanes, Vit has improved a great deal. Nagia has shown that he can play a great weak side. And if you remember, especially from this tiebreaker series that Mabi mentioned earlier, was the second game where Wales had a tragic early game, and despite that, they managed to patch up some sort of comeback through mid-game, through 7th objective timings. They have great setup. They also know very well how to handle like invades. Of course, there's the occasional, the not uncommon Killer Queen over aggression, but despite that, they are a well-oiled machine, and we can really see B's impact in the decision making, in setting up these calls and managing how the whole team moves around objectives, around skirmishes. That's where they absolutely shine. And of course, as you mentioned, GAM are still the team to beat, but they have faltered. And in this specific area of the game, I think Wales excel, and that's what will make the difference today against SBTC.
Interesting stuff. Now, Marby, something you've brought up is over on the side of SBTC. They've got Ren. This is like a coach that's just been this absolutely legendary coach. He was for those that don't know, he was the Saigon Buffalo coach in the last split when they were so impressive in their 2 international showings. He's now left Saigon Buffalo and they're not in playoffs. SBTC is. So can you give me a breakdown of the Ren effect?
So the Ren effect is not, in my opinion, at least for this, it's not quite as obvious. It's not quite as clear cut. Ren is the mastermind, like it was on SBTC. Not on on Saigon Buffalo. On Buffalo, we saw Bean J execute plans that were that seemed to be thought of by Ren, and when they fell apart, there was very little adaptability. This time, Ren has come and joined a team which has good players top to bottom. That was harsher to Buffalo than I meant it, but you know what I mean. They've always had talent stacked in the role. They've had Paulette for a while, who is a great in-game leader historically, and they've just sort of needed something to pull the team together holistically outside the game, I think, as well as maybe give them a little bit more direction of how to play the games. And I think that's really come into it. A split with the addition of Slater, with the addition of Ren, and they're able to form a bit more of an identity, which is strong lanes, and getting DNK to assist these lanes and let DL1 fill any gaps in the draft. He has such a deep champion pool. 20 champions played this split, and he's just, okay, what does our composition need? I'm picking that.
Interesting stuff. And I want to stay with you for a little bit, Marby, because as you outlined in your initial introduction, you're a bit of a fan of both teams. You are the original Wales fangirl, particularly because of their mid laner. And I'm stealing this from Clockwork. I'm going to let you talk about Glory because you have been carrying his torch for who knows how many splits at this point.
Since before he was in the league, goddammit. Glory. So this split has definitely been a quieter one for Glory. Last year, before they brought in B and before Nagia stepped up, he was the center point. Him and Killer Queen, they controlled the whole map. But this time it's been a lot better for Glory because he has been able to take a back seat, and Nagia has stepped up and is currently, in a lot of people's eyes, the best top laner in the league this split, especially in regular season. The bot lane has consistently gotten better over time, and B has sort of taken a role as sort of an in-game leader, shot caller, whatever you want to call it. But Glory, his role has moved a lot away from being the early game presence to being a team fight setup, team fight initiator, working on things like the Talia, the Annie, the Gragas, to try and set up plays for his team into the mid to late game and make sure those team fights play out smoothly, rather than be the be all and end all of the team, which is a nice sort of change because he's been kind of the best player on failing teams for so long. It's nice to see him be able to take not a backseat role, but a role of less importance try and lift the team to greater heights rather than have everything crush him under the weight of pressure.
That's an excellent breakdown because, of course, the mid lane matchup is going to be fireworks. Don't worry, we will talk about DR1, but we're saving that one for later because he is one of the most star-studded studs of the VCS. Moving back over to you, Clockwork. I want to talk about SBTC. You've actually identified one player as well, but it's down in the bot lane. It's Slater. Give me the rundown on him. How do you think he's going to go today up against Vit?
Okay, so I'll be honest. I didn't expect much from Slater. He's had rough last few splits, so I expected something like a washed up play. But I've been very much impressed, especially in the last few weeks, about how lane dominant he has been. He has focused a lot on getting these early advantages, of course, assisted by Palette and also his jungler in a bot lane centric meta. His champion pool is a bit narrow. He mostly plays just the Xayah and the Zeri, but on these late game carries also, like he can get an early advantage and then snowball off that. And he's been the main carry for SBTC in saving lost games in so many situations. It's unbelievable. So Slater is really the number one asset in SBTC's back pocket. Even above Emperor, we know we have had a high praise for Emperor for a lot of splits, but Slater at this moment is the centerpiece for SBTC and absolutely their win condition. If they win, it's because Slater pops off.
Marvin, do you agree? I'm just curious. Because I don't think you necessarily think Slater is as big a centerpiece.
He's not the sole win condition. Of course, I think Emperor can usually, especially on Emperor champions, the Gwen, the Fiora, things like that. Perhaps can definitely be a threat. It's definitely a threat to be reckoned with. But I think when you come up into this matchup specifically, Slater is your best bet because Emperor up against Nagia. Nagia should definitely be able to contain Emperor. DR1 and Glory have both played played secondary carry roles in the splits, so it might come down to bot diff a little bit for the side of SBTC, and I think Slater and Polite overall have been the best 2v2 in the league by not the biggest margin perhaps, because Artemis and Ronnie have definitely had their moments, but they're up there. They are up there, and especially in the lane itself, Vit and B have definitely struggled at times.
Well, we've done a fair bit of breaking down, but now that draft is not too far away, we hope. Don't jinx it. It should be within a few minutes. I need to, get down to brass tacks. I need predictions from both of you. Clockwork, who is taking the win and facing Garm in the upper finals?
So my call, after seeing the tiebreaker especially, is a 3-1 Wales, because Wales have overall a better in-game plan, but there might be int moments, especially I'm looking at Killer Queen. I'm his number 0 fan, but he's had moments.
All right, and Marby, I need a quick prediction from you because we are into draft.
I'm going to give it 3-2, and a little bit of that reason may actually be the draft.
3-2-2.
Oh, 3-2 Wales.
All right, fair enough. We've got some Wales fans in the house as we do see Vi, Lee Sin, Varys, Zeri, Tristana, Xayah. Big bot lane focus from Wales, and it makes sense up against the stud that is Slater. Wukong for DNK will be the first pick.
This is a bit of a takeaway from the side of Killer Queen specifically. I mean, it's everyone has played it, but it's definitely been a Killer, whereas DNK has trended to prefer this Giovanni and something a little bit tankier. But of course, Glory's going to get his most played in the Annie. Still flexible in theory, but it's definitely trended a lot more towards the mid lane pretty much across the world. So I think you can follow that up pretty quickly with a Lee Sin if you want, or maybe try and grab an early priority AD carry for Vit, maybe the Aphelios or the Jinx.
Right, especially in the AD carry department, it would be a good pick now for Wales, since they already took away the two most played champions, the Zeri and the Xayah, out of Slater. So depleting even more his champion pool would be wise. There's also the chance to pick some support. They usually take some comfort for Killer Queen. So I would not be surprised also to see some Vi or some Wukong. Now my screen is frozen, so I will pass it.
We've been having some we've been having some tech issues on our end, but don't worry, I can tell you what's happening. There is a Jinx and a Kai'Sa locked in for Slater. Interesting stuff.
Of course, Slater.
There we go. We do need to be back. Thank you, Smooth. Yep, Slater going back to Old Faithful. I mean, if you ban 3, pick 1, you do push him pretty far down, and he just goes back to the waifu.
Yeah, this is a little bit different to what I might have expected, which would have been a more a slightly more aggressive Kalista style bot lane where they try and do that. Killer Queen's running for his options right now. The Viego is not definitely very reasonable, at least in, of course, ban. I missed that one earlier, but after that, his next play would be the Maokai, but teams have been trending away from that recently, so Viego makes sense.
Right. I'm particularly impressed with this tri-core that SPTC has picked up. It's incredibly aggressive with like Wukong, Rakan, Kai'Sa. They all want to jump in, and that's a scary game plan already. And I think now Wales should try and patch it up with something that stems this aggression, pick some disengage. I would have liked the Kindred in this context that can make up for. They can buy a lot of time with her ultimate to face this dives from SPDC. So yeah, now they need to find and maybe keep this counter pick for Nagia, and we see that SPDC are already taking away his comfort picking Jax, and I expect also the Malphite to be taken away.
Yeah, I'm looking sort of in terms of defense. There's the Thresh option, of course. That's a good matchup into the Rakan specifically in the lane, at the very least. And the Lantern gives some extra safety for Killer Queen, but maybe even Tahm Kench, maybe Braum for B as well can come out. He's definitely not going to be allowed to play Nautilus, but there's a lot of options he can play, and I think a defensive support option goes to B's, sits in B's wheelhouse and would be a decent answer to what they have so far. Renata fits the bill, and then saving that counter pick for Nagia as Clockwork mentioned.
And seeing this Renata being locked in is actually really exciting. B has actually always been very, very good on this champion. Renata Jinx as well is a very mean matchup. It's going to make Slater's life really hard if he tries to ult in, immediately gets hit with either just a handshake or the Renata ultimate directly in his face. Kennen as well, that's being locked in.
Okay.
That's not super easy to pilot against Renata.
Yeah, it's also a blind pick cannon, so there's still a rock available that can definitely make that rat's life a living hell, and I wouldn't be surprised to see that come on through from Nagia. It's one of his most played champions, so. Oh, this is actually good. If they pick the Silas, this kind of denies the Malphite pick as an option, so good drafting coming up from SPTC.
That's a cool idea. Let's see. Right, now let's see what they pick up for top lane, because there's already, I think, there's still the Cassante available. That's something. Are we having a Azir top lane? Okay. Jay's also one of Nagia's comfort picks. He can fare very well without a lot of jungler attention, and can make his presence felt across the map at all times in the game. So I think this is an excellent pick, and also dodges the Silas threat, as Mabi mentioned. The rock angle has been denied.
All right, well, you two, I am going to have to get some predictions and a final take on draft from both of you, because I want to let our casters introduce themselves. So, Clockwork, your last take on the draft and a prediction for Game 1.
Actually, SPTC, I'm going for the chickens here. They are so aggressive, and I would want to some VCS energy straight into my veins.
All right, Marby, nice and quick, a prediction and a last comment.
A lack of frontline might hurt them, but I'm going to throw the first one to Wales.
All right, and now I will throw over to what I believe is VCS English's best duo. It's Milky and Your Way. Take us away for Game 1.
Thank you very much for that, Carex. I'm Lucky Serial. That's your way. We're getting ready to head on into game 1 of our series. The winner will be facing off against Gam in the upper bracket finals. And Wales against SBTC. If we roll back the clock to your way to the start of the split, we would not have really thought it'd be these 4 teams in the playoffs, but here we are, and I couldn't be happier that it is these 4.
Yeah, very interesting storylines. We're definitely gonna tap into that later on in the cast on the analyst desk as well, because we all expected some other teams, especially over SPTC, to make it, looking at you, Saigon Buffalo. But as the analysts actually mentioned, my favorite coach of all time in the VCS made his transition over to SPTC, coming from SGB, and, well, what can you say? Promptly, this team made the playoffs. Second place tiebreaker. They did lose to Team Wales, as the analysts also mentioned. So it's the very rare case where we have seen this exact matchup happen on this exact patch just a week ago. So we have a lot of data here, but you also have to consider maybe there was a little bit of strategy hiding because the tiebreaker didn't really matter too much in the end. Killer Queen needs to be super careful. Oh, this is some spicy beginning to the game.
And Emperor just checks out Killer Queen, throws in a shuriken and says, haha, I get the first auto. Now, we mentioned that these 2 teams have played earlier on this patch. Now, your way, what was the result of that series?
Well, Wales did win 2-1 in a very back and forth series, I have to say. But yeah, they did walk away with a victory.
Now, you say it's 2-1, I say it's 1-1 because Slater wasn't playing. It was Vin Boys. Therefore, I like to think that these 2 rosters are perfectly balanced against each other.
Well, that's actually a very good point. Yeah, SPTC came into the series with Vin Boys, and he looked all right, not great, but yeah, Slater was definitely an improvement in game 2 and 3, though Vit in game 3 especially, on the Lucian Nami, which is even more surprising considering Lucian Nami's win rate in the VCS, he was smurfing the whole game. He was one of the main carries together with Glory on Jace in mid lane. So Vit, I think, especially in the last few weeks, has actually been able to stand up for himself. We had this dip in the middle of the split where Wales faced off against Saigon Buffalo and Cerberus back-to-back, and the 2 best AD carries at the point, at least, in Shogun and Artemis, was both just a serious loss for Wales, with bot lane div being the deciding factor. But in the last few weeks, and especially of the uptake of form for Vit and B as well in the bot lane 2v2, they managed to win all their series. So on a 4-series winning streak, and Vit has been one of the big factors alongside some of the other carries on the team. So as an eternal Vit hater myself, I have to say, I have to give him credit. He has really stepped up and has been able to stand up to some of the better ADCs in the league.
And that's something that we were kind of discussing at the start of the split. It's a very nice trade from the SPTC bottom lane, B being chunked down to about half health, is coming into this split and Team Wales having a bit of a, I wouldn't call it a super team, but definitely a big investment towards trying to win the split. Vit was a big question mark for them, and we thought, oh, maybe we'll get to see Haki. We were a little bit sad that we didn't get to see Haki, but Vit has slowly grown in this ADC role and has just become more of a stable factor. Now, DNK looking towards the bottom lane, Flame Chompers will prevent DNK from finding any engage, and Palette with a poor grand entrance, getting chunked down with a zap. Almost finding first blood for the Wales.
Wait, no, don't flash that. Oh, you know Paletta's flash. I was just gonna praise him for not flashing, and then he flashes so late. Unfortunate. It's a flash trait which is not that favorable for Jinx into Rakan especially. A little bit of an overstep, but another gank attempted. Oh, this is counter-gankable from Killer Queen. So many early wards from both teams. Very safe play, which is completely different to what we saw in the early games, especially in game 1 of the tiebreaker, where it was just a brawl from start to finish. So this is back to the early split form from Wales, where they played very measured, very slow games, very low kill early games. And I feel like this style fits Wales really well, because their mid and late game objective control is amazing. But here Glory needs to be careful. I think he can just walk away though.
Yeah, Glory kiting back the gank rather effectively. Still has his flash available as well, and will get chunked down, and is probably within kill range of Dia 1 if that Silas can get a full combo onto the Annie.
Yeah, and now I want to take a minute to talk about Killer Queen and Glory together, because not only because of the combination of players, we were so hyped to see this team form this combination of two rookie players or newer players, new generation VCS talent, that kind of just always sat on the edge of being great, but never really made that final step. Now they get together, the Burst the Sky carry and Glory, and of course the Luxury carry and Killer Queen forming a team together. So that's super exciting. And especially if you look at the champions played, Glory on Annie, his most played champion in this whole split. 7 games, really good win rate as well. And Killer Queen on Viego, the exact opposite. 3 games, none were wins. So this combination has not really been all that successful so far, but I do like to see Killer Queen in a very strong early game jungler that can skirmish. As Vit, no flash, remember, this is very dangerous.
Palet with the engage, in comes B. Can he keep Vit alive with a hostile take of maybe they get the kill? They do indeed. It is first blood for Team Wales. Renata coming in clutch, and we'll say thank you very much.
That's the B-Div right there, overextending under the tower into Renata W. They just forget about the champion. And Vid, of course, back from the grave, and they get first blood on their hyper carry.
Well, I think we need to have a quick replay of that, because it looked like it was all over for Vit.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good collapse against any other support champion in the game, because Vid dies here. But of course, it's Renata W, and the combination of Renata W and Jinx passive to get her to safety super quickly worked wonders there. Vid gets away with wasting his flash early on and actually gets first blood funneled into him. And Dragon on top of that. A really good early game Dragon too. But now Killer Queen might be overextended. No, he's fine.
Nice little handshake by B and SBTC. Don't want to aggress on the play too much. Team Wales able to pick up B first streak, and they sport themselves a rather nice 1,000 goal lead. Although Slater does have a little CS lead in the bottom lane, but I don't think that will be enough to negate the first blood goal Vit was able to secure.
And bot lane focus going in Wales' way is such a good sign for this team, because that's really, as Marby talked about on the desk, I believe, one of the biggest ways you can see SPTC actually winning a series against Wales is ADC diff. As I said earlier, they struggled against really strong ADC teams, hyper carry ADC teams, and Slater, in his form, this actually most MVP points from our caster team, from all the ADCs, is certainly one of those players that can be the hyper carry. 2 titles under his belt against Garmin 2020. He can really be the player that makes the difference. But of course, Vit with a huge improvement, and I feel like this meta also shifting more towards safer early lanes and more team fighting can help him quite a bit, because even though his team fighting is not on the level of Slater and Artemis, it should be good enough, especially with some of the other carries on his team, to set him up, some of the bailouts from B, so that Wales can win teamfights later on. Generally, a super strong teamfighting team.
And let's not forget as well, you bring up the 2 titles that Slater has. That is with Palet. When they were both together back on Team Flash in 2020, they were able to... Oh yeah, sorry, just one of them. Able to dethrone Gam from the top of the split. Something that hasn't happened until Cerberus back in winter 2021. And we'll see whether Gam can be dethroned this spring split. However, a bit of a quiet lull phase in the game. I'm still just looking towards Glory on this Annie, because one thing to always remember whenever you have an Annie on the map, it's going to get lane pressure, which it has got over Tier 1. Can it roam around and find some picks in the side lanes?
Yeah, and there's a very surprising early game in terms of jungle aggression from Wales, especially, Nagia, be careful there. Very good scouting. And now the counter gank is coming in. This could be spicy. That's a 2v2, and Wukong has ultimate. Killer Queen needs to be very, very careful. She runs straight into that double ultimate, but instead, now wait. Oh my god, SPTC.
Does Killer Queen need to be careful? In comes Glory, flash with the Tibbers, handshaked in, down goes Emperor. Killer Queen says thank you for the kill, and the rest of SPTC make their way forward. B will fall, but surely this is Team Wales' fight all day. Tier 1 still alive, and somehow the kill doesn't go the way of it. Tier 1 survives with practically no health remaining. The rockets are still flying from Fit, but not enough to secure a kill, and it will just be a 1-for-2 with SBTC coming out on top.
But how did SPTC win this one? This is that was some puzzling play there. Wales a bit over aggressive. Killer Queen, he finally wanted to do something, chased a little too far and didn't get his reset. Look at this. This collapse is amazing. Team Wales is first on the map, but they do lose a lot of HP through the double AoE ultimates, the double circles of the Wukong and Cannon. They actually lose one member before this fight really kicks off. I believe B went down super early. So the fight, they really shouldn't have lost the early 2v4 engagement, but because they were able to just focus one target down, then Killer Queen thinks, okay, we have a 4v2 advantage, but actually B is already down, then they overcommit to the chase. So very close to actually breaking the game open for Team Wales. If B is 2 levels higher in that fight and he gets his ultimate, or has the ultimate to influence the fight, I think it's just a wipe for and SPTC has no chance whatsoever. But through very weird interactions there and double circle ultimates, they actually get bailed out themselves this time. And once again, engagement on Vit.
Again, Vit being caught out, B not around this time to keep his ADC alive, but Vit's just perfectly happy to play this particular 1v2, and we saw the damage being output in that previous fight. It was all favoured to the side of Team Wales, but SPTC making their damage count more, all of their damage focused on to more specific targets, let's say. Now Team Wales looking towards this first Rift Herald of the game.
Yeah, if you take a quick look at the itemization, of course, Annie has 0 AP, like, okay, 15 AP from the ring. So even though the engage looked good, there's not much damage after the engage, right? So that's some of the reason why this engagement went so weirdly even though it was a 4v2 at the start. And now SPTC actually stealing away the first Herald against kind of run of play. Team Wales focusing a little bit more on securing a safer lane for Vid. This is very unusual. If you look at the stats for Team Wales in the early game, they are very good, or throughout the whole game actually, they're very good at controlling objectives. First in almost every stat, especially Dragon, but also Herald doing quite well. So this is already kind of against the general trends of these two teams, but Wales is going to fight back with another Dragon. That's 2 Dragons already, and if the Soul is good, this could lead to a nice extra win condition.
Someone prepare the drum roll for what soul we're going to have. It is an Infernal. It will be an Infernal Rift, and I think an Infernal Soul is alright when you look towards members like Nagia, Glory, Vit. Speaking of Nagia, he is about to get engaged on in a 1v3 under his tower. The Cyclone has been used, and I think Slater will be wanting to pick up the spoils of war. No other members from Team Wales can get up to this top lane either.
Yeah, Nagia is so sad. He's watching his screen. He knows it's gonna get gray. It's gonna turn grey very soon. Can't really do anything there, and the kill goes over to Emperor.
You could just see Slater, Killer Instinct team, say, "This is my kill," and Emperor say, "No, buddy, go back to bot lane. This is my kill."
So we do have precedent for this kind of situation happening. Actually, Game 3 between Team Wales against SPTC in the tiebreaker, they counter-picked top lane and went top lane over and over again to punish Nagia in lane. He was own 3, permanently dived on from the enemy team. But SPTC kind of faltered in the mid game. They were not able to push their advantage with an AP top laner, this time Rumble. But now it's Cannon. They find Lori here. I think Lori should be fine though. Yeah, no damage between either of these mid laners. They're just building Rod of Ages, no stacks. They're just staring at each other. Very tanky.
Okay. Emperor, go in, son. On to Vit. The shield is enough to keep Vit alive. But Pellet is making his way in. Flashes forward, drops down the Ignite. Surely that will burn down and kill Vit. Emperor ends up finding the Thundering Shuriken to secure the kill. And SPTC have their 4th of the game.
And yet again, Vid with a slight oversight, as he did in the early game with the Flash. Just give the kill to the Ignite. Palette, he used a Flash and Ignite to get the kill. Honestly, might not be worth it to get the kill there on the support. Instead, he tries to fight back, steps back in, and the kill goes over to Emperor. That's a bit unfortunate. Vid with some very minor mistakes that give the wrong targets kills, unfortunately. So now SPTC have recovered their early game. They're still slightly behind in gold, actually, which is a bit surprising. And they're facing 2 dragons while already having used their Herald. So even though some of the skirmishes have gone in SPTC's favor in the last few minutes, I think Wales are still sitting pretty in this game and are enjoying their mid-game advantages.
Killer Queen looking for an angle onto Slater, but Slater is wise to the movements of Team Wales. 2.5 minutes until a potential 3rd Drake and Soul point for Team Wales if they can pick up that particular Infernal Drake. And as you mentioned, SBTC, they kind of look like they should be ahead in terms of their kill advantage, but you can see, in terms of tower plates, Team Wales have been able to pick up 7, which is a net 700 gold advantage over SBTC.
Yeah, and once again, this is not a typical Wales game. Wales usually comes alive after 15 minutes. They are actually down on average when it comes to towers, as opposed to SBTC, who's one of the best early tower-focused team. And then it completely reverses in stats if you just look through all the games in the whole split, as Nagia needs to be careful. That's the double circle ultimate combo again. Trying to bait them here.
He is, because Killer Queen is hovering around, but overall, SBTC have 3 members, make it 4, because both Slater and Palette have arrived to the top lane. And Team Wales are just going to have to back off. They have been able to pick up the first tower of the game. Maybe DNK will even fancy stealing this red buff away from Killer Queen.
Yeah, no, Killer Queen. Oh, the tower does go down to the cannon, which is nice, but doesn't really advance the game state all that much. It's a little bit of gold into the cannon. More important is what's going to happen around this dragon in 1 minute, because if Wales gets the soul point this early on, especially with the Jinx and an Annie, so really easy team fighting setups, I think it's going to be a hard game to play. So SBTC is hard pressed to play for this dragon and actually make something happen. They do have strong power spikes on their side. Enper, no flash, but level 11 and movement ability already on his items, so he should be in prime position to contest this Jinx. Now, Vit does have the flash to keep himself safe, and his ghost might be up for the team fight as well. So we might well look at something like an Enper against Vit to decide this team fight around the dragon in 40 seconds. But for that, Enper actually needs to get down there. He does have TP, but no great wards to get behind the enemy team. So everything focused on this dragon. 30 seconds left, and it feels like Wales have the upper hand when it comes to vision setup. Really good pink wards all across the river.
And looking towards that team fight, something I like to bring up whenever there is a Viego or a Jinx is how important it is for Team Wales in this instance to be able to find that first kill. And they have a composition that has very good single target damage, having the likes of Glory on this Annie, Nagia on this Jace. If they can find that first kill, get Killer Queen that reset, get Vit excited on the Jinx, the rest of the team fight can become so much easier for them to execute.
Enper just uses teleport to get onto the bottom side of the dragon. So Wales surrendered a bit of their position, but they are clumping together, and they're trying to slowly walk towards dragon. They can flip. Honestly, it's fine for them to flip. They already have 2 dragons, and this is getting scary and scary. Glory!
Glory flashing forward, looking for the engager onto DNK. The hostile takeover has been used. Slicing Maelstrom will only find a 1-member. Killer Queen engaged on and will fall. The bailout will not be enough to keep him alive. But look at the Jinx go, firing out rockets and just forcing SBTC away. The zap is huge, and SBTC can they get into the pit? They can't. And Team Wales, yes, they lose the fight, but they have the health bar advantage, and now they have soul point.
No, they actually won the fight, Milky. Yes, they lost kills, but they won the fight. They pushed them back, and they got the dragon. That's all they ever came for. Honestly, the engagement Glory is really bad. He doesn't even get the stun initially on DNK. They try to burst down the jungler, but amazing disengage ultimate here from B, just using the full space of the river, the perfect place to use that ultimate. The hostile takeover, just amazing. And the enemy team is pretty short range too. No opportunity for Slater to dive into the backline, so he's kind of muted in the fight. You never really want to go front to back with the Kaiser into Jinx. That's never going to work. Jinx just so much better in those kind of situations. And imagine if Vit has 2 more items there. I think that he gets a pentakill on the chase. So honestly, that's a really, really good sign for Wales.
Junglers smacking each other as they look at the second Rift Herald. SBTC were able to get the first one, and Team Wales I don't think would be too bothered if they can't pick up this second Herald of the game.
Very disciplined game from Wales, really back to their earlier split form where they played super slow games. We thought they were we were in LCK territory. We looked at Killer Queen, we're like, who is this guy? He's not diving the enemy team, he's not going into the enemy jungle. Is this really Killer Queen? But yeah, he has been much more disciplined now on this new team. Maybe B has tamed him. And even though the tiebreaker was a bit of an old VCS style, I was looking at that and thinking, okay, I'm not actually sure if this is indicative of what Wales wants to do for playoffs, because second place tiebreaker, it doesn't really matter all that much. If you look at the standings, it's very unlikely that either of these teams gets picked and the likely scenario is that they actually play a best of 5 just 1 week after. So do you really want to show everything? And I feel like this first game's already a really good indicator that both teams weren't really playing at 100%, at least in the macro sense of things. Maybe mechanically, yes, but playing it much safer already in this early stage of the series.
There's something really disgusting about seeing Vit with Runan's Hurricane just throwing out so many rockets. Team fights really clumped together, which means Vit's going to be able to hit multiple people at one time. Now, I do want to just take a small trek away from seriousness, because your way, I just realized that you've got a live reaction cam in the bottom of the screen, and I love it.
Well, it's the classic.
That hasn't been there all split, has it?
No. It's only in these kind of situations. Usually I'm producing, but we need to focus. Nagia overstepped. Oh, he might die
Flash
here.
forward with a slicing maelstrom, and a kill will go the way of SBTC. But that, critically, is a flash down for Emperor, which means for the next fight over Drake, Emperor cannot flash with that slicing maelstrom to get onto Team Wales' backline.
Yeah, and now it's on SPTC. They need to make this count. And they could try to run it Baron, right? But the enemy top laner you just killed has TP, so it's really risky. And they also have a Jinx who loves to play around Baron. That is her dream scenario. Remember that legendary pentakill from Danny back last year in spring? So really, this kill is not going to amount to much. And this is kind of what SPTC against Wales is all about. Look at the kill score, look at the dragon score. SPTC will go for aggressive kills, will go for skirmishes all the time. And sometimes it's enough. They really are the old VCS style team, where it's all about skirmishing, all about hand diffing. They don't really do all that well in terms of lane assignments and macro, but it doesn't really matter all that much in most of the games, because they just out-hands their opponents. And that is eerily similar to the old team of Ren. If you think about Saigon Buffalo against Team Secret last year, actually, Secret always lost early games against Saigon Buffalo. They were 5k gold down in the mid game, then the game slowed down, and gradually Saigon Buffalo actually lost a lot of their advantages. So even though I really like Ren when it comes to setups in the early game and drafts, maybe there's also a bit to be criticized about his mid-games and macro teaching, because it seems like both of his really successful teams struggle in the mid-game when it comes to lane assignment and understanding when to strike and where to attack.
Well, if we remember back when we had Hanke on our podcast, and he was talking about Saigon Buffalo, talking about how they're a really good team, but he will always mention that their weakness is if you take them out of their comfort zone, if you throw something into the game that they're not expecting, that's when they struggle to adapt and be able to find a macro game plan, as well as a team like Gammon. Maybe we're seeing something similar for SBTC here in the 2023 spring split. Drake, though, will be spawning up soon, and my eyes are on Emperor. What can the Lightning Rat do? Can he find a critical slicing maelstrom? While he doesn't have flash, he does have a rocket belt at his disposal.
They need to be very careful. This is almost the same as the last Dragon, where Team Wales just clumped together, and they have the better front-to-back team fight. They have better range. This is a flip.
And again, Glory just flashes in. DAK's out, the juggler is gone. Emperor to the backline with a slicing maelstrom, but there's no follow-up from SBTC. Slater forced to flash over the wall, throws out a Void Seeker. Killer Queen, though, still alive, and Team Wales dominate SBTC in the river. They pick up the soul as well, and SBTC are continued to run on the retreat. But where are they going? Dia 1 will be able to survive, but surely the same cannot be said for Palette.
Yeah, Palette is trying to buy time. This is actually not bad from him. Okay, he's gonna die, most likely. There he goes. But he actually chased them towards the top side of the map. So now Team Wales has an really easy access to Baron Pit. Will they start the Baron? They don't have to. They just won the big prize of the soul. Played almost to perfection. Very easy, actually, the way Team Wales played this game. They didn't really care about vision setup. They just said, hey, we just walk at them as 5. We have better range. We have better defensive tools with the Renata. And, well, this time Glory actually hits the flash stun onto the enemy jungler. They eliminate the smite at the start. So now SPTC is forced to fight, no matter what, because they can't win the flip anymore. They don't have smite. And at this point, it's just doomed. So very, very nice play from Wales. Very standard, not very high level under anything there, but still super good, very disciplined play. And Wales off to a 4-0 Dragon start. The gold will still be close, but the game is actually in a really good state now for Wales to win team fights, especially if you consider Jinx against Kai'Sa.
And I think as well, it was just really smart from Team Wales. They kind of identified, hey, look, Palette's on one side looking for a flank. Emper's on another side looking for a flank. Let's just flash engage onto DNK, get a kill, and then we win the fight. And there was just no way for SBTC to do what they wanted to do in that fight. We saw Emper finding a really big slicey maelstrom, but just no follow-up at all. And now SBTC have to fight against this Infernal Soul Team Wales. To be fair to SBTC, they're not even 2,000 gold behind Team Wales, but against the Soul, against the scaling Jinx as well, it's going to be very difficult for them.
Yeah, this is the most fake I've ever seen a gold lead look like, because it's not even at all in this game. Like, 4 dragons, the individual stats on the dragons you have to consider, but then also the soul on top of that, and scaling of champions. They're already a better 5-man composition, just clumping together and just playing front to back. So this is really hard to play now for SPTC, and they misread some of what their composition was supposed to do, in my opinion, when it comes to especially dragon setups. They should never try to face Wales' team comp face up. Like, just try to set up flanks. You have Silas, you have Cannon, and Wukong. They can all come from different sides and try to flank and get on top of Jinx and actually make it so that B can't just put his defensive tools, especially his ultimate, down and they all run at each other. If you come from different sides, Renata loses a lot of her value. But instead, they just ran to Dragon first, made it so easy for Wales to just walk down the river together, and that's exactly what happened.
In fairness to SPTC, they did try to go on Team Wales from 3 different sides, and Team Wales, well, Glory in particular, with a flash engage. However, we'll go back to this point shortly, because Baron has been started, and once again, it is SPTC who are onto the objective first.
Yeah, a bit of desperation, maybe a little bit of let's see if they react. If not, if yes, we just walk away. If not, we get a free Baron. I don't hate the play. There's nothing much to do for SPTC. No one cares about bot lane at the moment. I would like to see Team Wales put Nagia down there, because Nagia actually built really strong items for 1v1 against Cannon and should be able to pressure him. Oh, and he overstepped.
Flash engage from DNK. Slater follows up with the killer instinct. Hostile takeover used as well. Really nice handshake. And Emperor will fall. It's a 1-for-1. And now the Jinx is excited. And DNK is dead. A double kill for Vit and the Baron for the taking for Team Wales.
Almost the perfect situation to start the fight for SPTC. They eliminate Glory before he can do anything. Couldn't flash. Couldn't do anything. Oh, yeah, one with a huge steal.
Hostile takeover into the Baron pit. Nagia being engaged on Slater, trying to kite back. Will fall, but will be able to get 1 kill in the process. Team Wales on the chase, looking for Dia1 and Palette. The rockets are flying from Vit. Big slow zap won't land, and Vit will not be able to get this kill. Has already used the flash and can't get in range of throwing out another water.
Yeah, but look at how hard it is to play those team fights for SPTC. But they do buy a little bit more time to get a few more items, of course. There will come a certain breakpoint in terms of items where you have enough burst that if you isolate Vit in any of these team fights, especially considering both of his summoners are down, maybe for Elder Dragon, and you burst him down, then item disadvantages will not matter too much. The start is so good, but they only kill Annie, and Annie is not a main carry. Annie is a little bit of a deceptive engage tank thingy in this composition. She doesn't really offer all that much damage. It's all on Vit to provide the hyper carrying and a little bit of Jace. But Annie is really just the engage bot, and they overcommit onto that engage bot and pay dearly for it. Look at the positioning for Vit. He's so safe, even pinned against the wall in this Baron pit. He can just free fire all the time.
Well, he flashed out of the hostile takeover, realized he was still in the hostile takeover range, had to use the stopwatch. Baron now being started once again. SBTC they contest it once more. DNK using the Cyclone, handshake away. Baron secured, hostile takeover, will snag onto DNK. 1 kill for Team Wales, looking for more as Emperor goes into the backline with a slicing Maelstrom, but the Lightning Rat just does not have enough damage. Dia1 on the run. Team Wales already claiming 3 kills, looking for a 4th, and there's not much Dia1 can do. Team Wales take the fight, and they may well just take the game as well.
Yeah, marching down mid lane with 5 members strong with the Jinx. That and Jace, two of the best champions against towers in the game. I think this is gonna be game number 1 in Wales back. What a beautifully played game. Very un-old VCS style. Like very strong macro understanding. A good restraint shown from this team. They are on top of their game as opposed to some of what they showed in the tiebreaker. They are playing a standard textbook style of League. Much better than SPTC, at least in game 1. A well-deserved victory to start the series for Wales. Just teamfight them.
A very impressive game from Team Wales, and it kind of all just started off with that play that we saw in the bot lane where, let's be honest, Slater and Palette got very unlucky not to get a kill on Vit, but again, B coming in clutch, and there's a reason why we revere him as being the best support in the VCS. The flash, the save with the bailout, and then from there, it was just a snowball game for the side of Team Wales, picking up Drake after Drake after Drake, and a very good performance for game 1 of our upper bracket semi-final.
And there's a lot SPTC can look back on, some of their engage focus, some of their target calling maybe, the flank setup I talked about, but most importantly how they approach the river and how they just started dragons when actually they could have just waited for the enemy team to start dragons and then come from all the different sides and collapse on them instead of giving them this clumped up position in the top of the river that was really working well for Team Wales. So I think SPTC has a pretty easy job of identifying the mistakes here, and I hope they can come back and play a stronger game in game number 2.
So with that, we're going to be throwing to a short break, and when we return, our analyst Seth will be breaking down that opening game and sending us in for game 2 between Team Wales and SBTC. Stay tuned.
What are you willing to lose? You cover your wounds, but underneath them a million voices in your head that whisper, stop now. Another twist of the knife, a turn of the screws, it's all in your mind, and it's fighting you on yourself. The storm is coming. Wow, kid, what you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head, and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly. And now you're playing with matches, come out of the ashes underneath you. A million voices in the crowd, they're screaming, stop now. Well, let them swallow the pride, you're turning the tide to true believers. Got them in the palm of your hand, you're playing God now. What you gonna do now? It's your reflection looking back to pull you down. So are you gonna die today or make it out alive? You gotta conquer the monster in your head, and then you'll fly, fly, Phoenix fly. It's time for a new empire. Go bury your demons, then tear down the ceiling, Phoenix fly. What you gonna do now?
Welcome back, everybody, for game 2 of SBTC taking on the Whales. In game 1, it turns out that the Barnyard Blitz is going to go in favor of a whale. Who could have guessed, really? Chicken versus whale. I mean, it could have gone either way. But I am back with my lovely analysts, Marvin Ogie and Clockwork. And Clockwork, I'm going to you first because you said that the chickens were going to win.
Right, I expected a very VCS game with all the tools that SBTC got, but of course I forgot that to make their composition work and go really ham, they needed to be ahead, and that never happened in the whole game. The SBTC never managed to solidify a proper lead, and every time the Emperor was flashing in, every time the Palette tried to find and engage, they just couldn't materialize enough damage. They weren't ahead enough to make their comp work. And every time that they tried to make a team fight work, as Yulwei mentioned closing the game, in these dragons, in these setups, they were always first, and that meant that they had very few options to actually flank properly. They were flanked themselves. So yeah, there was something that didn't materialize with SBTC's comp. I agree with you, Wade. They are very easy mistakes to find and assess. But yeah, I want to see better from SBTC early game.
Yeah, I think a few of us want to be seeing a little bit better from the early game. I also have to question picking Kaiser. She's not playable right now. I'm going to be totally honest. There were a lot of ADC bans. Don't get me wrong. There were 4 ADCs taken off the table before he had a chance to pick. Still don't think she's the 5th best ADC. But Marby, I'm going to go over to you. What went right for Wales?
What went right was a little bit of luck. It's in the very, very early game, and by that I mean B bailing out Vit in that first overstep was huge. It stopped the bot lane being able to go wrong. It stopped a potential Kai'Sa snowball, and that was really good. And then from there, they were the ones that just actually made all the aggressive plays. They were willing to concede ground and let SBTC move into positions around the dragon for sure. And then when SBTC was still positioning, now that they're in the pit, they're setting everything up, it would be Glory flashing forward and trying to catch out DNK. Didn't quite work the first time, but in the end they were still able to push them away with a health leading to secure the dragon, even despite losing 2 members to nothing. They got the dragon, and then the second time around it worked out fantastically. And then once they had that lead, once they managed to pick up the Infernal Soul, just nothing else sort of came together. There was almost a huge ultimate from Emperor in that final fight. It did a lot of damage through it, but it was too late by that point, so they couldn't bring it home. And when you have all the aggression and you're controlling all the moves with a range advantage as significant as what Team Wales had, you're just going to win.
It's fair enough. And looking ahead to game 2, Clockwork, what can be changed on the draft phase to potentially bring this to 1-1?
One thing that probably Yulwei will agree with is that SBTC absolutely needed more range. There was a time during the early phase where Vit had 1 kill on Jinx, and from that point on, Slater had no chance to play the lane and had to swap, actually. They sent Dio1 bot lane, so he could farm with Sylas, and then Kai'Sa mid, so she had room to farm without being harassed by Jinx. So this was very clever on their side, don't get me wrong, but it was like a tough situation that they had put themselves in, and with some more range, some more agency to be safe in lane, without risking to be harassed and killed, I think SBTC would have managed to maybe gather and materialize a bit more of an early lead. Because, like, again, the first invade, that made sense. They got many kills in the early game, so they had the right ideas, but they were a bit tough in like being actually safe in lane. So yeah, range.
Marby, looking over at you, Wales did pick up the win, but do you think there is going to be changes in the draft given that they're probably swapping to the other side?
Swapping to the other side is definitely going to be give SPTC a little bit more to work with. They are going to be able to very likely counterpick the top lane. I'd imagine being able to pick an AD carry of their choosing. I mean, this time around, the Kai'Sa was the choice, but it's weird because Aphelios was still available, I believe, and then it's just Slater hasn't played Aphelios this split, but like in his career, he definitely has, and it's not a Artemis Zeri situation where he's got an abysmal win rate with it. So I don't know why they went to the Kai'Sa. They had a plan in mind, it didn't work. So I think this time they'll attack maybe a little bit more aggressively the picks of like Glory and somewhere else, rather than just taking away the Wukong and letting still strong junglers, because when there are still strong junglers like Viego and stuff still around.
I'm going to say something that you might hate, but imagine how different the game this would have been if SPTC had Lucian Nami.
It would have been better, but I feel like I think it would have been better for them. They would have had a little bit more agency to work with, but fundamentally they still would have had a range problem outside those culling windows. So I think it would have been better, but I think ultimately the result would have been much the same.
Fair enough. Yeah, I don't think Lucian Nami would have fixed the issues, to be perfectly honest. I'm not too sure for the record, just so everyone in chat knows. Don't know when draft is. We're playing it by ear. We'll get to draft as soon as it's up, I promise. Looking at it though, I think Wales definitely didn't play perfectly. I think Vit in particular did make a few mistakes, particularly in the early to early mid game. But looking ahead to game 2, Clockwork, how do you shut him down? I don't think you can stop him getting a decent ADC. How do you actually put enough pressure that those mistakes are enough to lose them a game?
So, as you said, it's really hard to pinch Vit's pool without at the same time pinching Slater's pool, because he has less champions played, just as Zeri and Xayah, and Wales already take them off the table. So you need to focus somewhere else, in the sense you need to enable, for example, DNK or DO1 with very mobile champion and set up some dives. And even if Vit has a comfort champions, just bash his head in. Try to monopolize everything that is happening in the bot lane, so that Slater, even if he is forced on some off comfort, he still can have enough space to farm and hold his own. So yeah, to salvage the bot lane situation, you need absolutely to have attention from somewhere else to be poured in that side of the map. And I want to see Dia1 especially come in with some aggressive pick, like something like the Tristana, for example, that makes for great dives, for example. And I know we all know that DNK plays a great Nocturne, so that's also another option.
Truly a cursed comp that Clockwork wants to see played.
I mean for the
I'm
evil.
glad ever since you made that pancake, I'm glad we don't let you cook anymore, because my word. Truly our content peaked that day. But anyway, Marby, looking at you, what do you want to see? Honestly, I'm just going to open the floor up. What do you want to see from either team going into the next game?
So I think what I think a lot of the bot lane might come down to. So this is what I might want to see is more from the side of SPTC is try and make. I think early picking your bot lane that aggressively, locking in both aspects of it in this matchup, especially notably the support matchup, might actually be a disadvantage. Like I think against B in particular, B is fantastic at these Renata or Brahms and these great support counter picks. So I think trying to force a blind pick support to come out of B very early can crush his potential and can quash his potential quite a lot, and allow Palette to be a little bit more aggressive in turn. Other than that, I mean, I would love to see some variety in the jungle, but we are cursed never to see it. But so I think try and counterpick for Palette and for Empa, and that might be and that's the way I think it should be going for SBTC.
Clockwork, what about you? If you had 1 point to make, what would it be as we are still waiting for the draft?
About Wales, you mean?
About either team, just whatever point you want to make.
Okay, so I've talked a lot about SBTC already. I'm gonna say a few things on Wales. I'm surprised actually that Wales was, especially Killer Queen, was so measured in his aggression. He never like sprinted it in, and his vehicle was like a bit not say unimpressive, but less flashy than I expected. So I want to see at least one game where he is given some tools to pop off.
That would be very interesting. And now, again, I think maybe oh no, we do have draft. I'm lying. My feed was
Let's go.
Bugged for a moment there. But we are into draft. Once again, ADC focus coming out of Wales. They really like this. Zeri, Tristana, Zaya removed. Of course, the Tristana is a bit of a flex there. Vi, Wukong, Lee Sin taken away. Annie and Sejuani are the picks.
Yeah, so jungle pool being targeted heavily. I mean, Killer Queen is by no means the most prolific Viego in this league, but in that first game he showed he can play it just fine, and paired alongside the Annie, it's going to be comfortable there. I am a little bit surprised they went for that Zaya ban and didn't try and take that for Vit himself, but now with that, but deciding to take that off the table so they can make sure they grab that Annie first pick. And now it's Slater going to be onto the Jinx this time around, take that out of the hands of Vit, which makes a lot of sense. He played it quite well in that first game. But Vit can jump onto the Aphelios pretty comfortably in this blue 3.
Right, there's the Aphelios angle. There's also the Lucian angle. We know that B also can play Nami very well. I mean, like this Lucian Nami isn't really like a strong duo in general. We have grown past the need for Lucian Nami. However, Wales is the one team that has beaten GAM with the duo. Aphelios, of course, wiser pick, longer range, more impact. So I like that they are going for that as well. And now SPDC have the choice. Probably they're going to go either for support or also probably mid lane. They are used to pick something blind for their mid laner sometimes. Maybe it will be the Lulu. Makes sense. Great duo in the bot lane.
Yeah, already assembling a very strong bot lane here for Slater and Paulette. Able to potentially be a real hyper carry for Slater, which is what we want to see. We couldn't see that in game 1. He just did not have too much agency on the Kai'Sa. Jinx, very different. That long range giving her so much pop-off potential. Vit, of course, getting his Aphelios. This is a champion he's very comfortable on. But we have a lot of question marks, particularly for SBTC, with both of their solo lanes still up in the air. They are going to remove Jax, a champion Nagio is extremely proficient on. But Nagia's got a champion Ocean, so targeting him, I'm not too sure how effective that is.
Yeah, you can't remove everything for sure, and it's going to be the attempt to try and ban out DL1, which is a similar issue coming in from the side of in terms of champions available for Dia to work through, but this seems to be the way. I would have expected a bit more of a support focus in the bans, as it's going to be Silas taken away now. It is first pick opportunity for the side of SBTC, so what are they going to work with? Maybe that ban signals that they're going to just try and lock in a Malphite or something of similar similar ultimate potency for the top side. Maybe it turns out to be a Gnar. I would hate that, but it would explain a Silas pick somewhat. And it's a more common blind.
Yeah, it looks like a Malphite angle for SBTC, even because you don't want absolutely let that one rock into Nagia's hands. He has 100% win rate on the pick, and he's played it like 8 times. So, yeah.
This is actually kind of crazy. There's a setup here that I think SBTC is angling for, where they want Wales. No, they want Wales to pick Malphite.
Okay, they're cooking something.
They want Malphite to get picked, and then they get a Vayne top.
Ooh, that would be insane.
I don't think Emperor is necessarily the Actually, wait, no, you don't want to play Vayne top into Malphite, ever. Malphite is a counter pick into Vayne.
I don't know if it is.
It-
a carry top.
But
regardless.
Yeah.
more specifically, it's much more likely to be the Gwen, most likely coming out from him, but that's more his MO than the marksman, regardless. Cassandra
hard.
will be the safe blind regardless. Now
It's
we'll
hard
see
to
where
fish
B
a
wants
whale.
to go.
Well, it's hard to fish a whale if they don't take the bait, because they don't go for the Malphite actually. They go for the Cassante top, and then B has a lot of options because all the supports are on the table. He's going for the Nautilus, so there's a lot of crowd control here on whales. Coming from Dota, I love when a team's just overloads on stuns. That's exactly what whales are gathering here, and they have very obvious targets like Syndra and Jinx will have a very tough time.
I would have liked the Thresh, I think, overall, coming out as the option of the hook champions that were being cycled through, but Nautilus does make a lot of sense, and it will be Fiora taken into this top 9 matchup, rather than, say, Gwen wants to try and be a little bit more active, a little bit faster, and though it's not as strong in the 5v5s perhaps, looking to try and utilize some split lane potential for the side of SBTC.
Yeah, and I mean, this is sort of what I was getting at. It's not as explosive as a Vayne top. Maybe that was a bit of cope on my part, but it is.
That's not Harsmed. Harsmed's not
Harsmed. It's true. But it is still Enpa getting a carry top, which I think is really, really good for them. I think it's where he shines. And into the Cassante, I'll admit, I'm not actually super familiar with the Cassante Fiora matchup, but I can't see that being bad for Fiora. It seems like it's a pretty free lane, even if she can't necessarily kill him. But then again, Enpa probably can get kills because it's Enpa. He kind of just does that. But before I continue rambling on and on, Clockwork, I want to go for you first. Give me a little chat and a prediction.
This time I'm going for Team Wales. I love their composition. They have way more stuns, way more agency. SPTC has angles because they have the damage this time. They have the Syndra that can win lane. Slater is on a good AD carry, so this is playable. However, Wales win.
Bobby?
I'm actually going to go for the SPTC angle run this time. I think they've got a lot of things in terms of just draft alone, I think they have pretty good matchups across the board. I think the Jinx can absolutely do a lot of work here. But also, if they played with the same tendencies as they did in Game 1, I would give it to Wales. So,
and with that, we will head straight over to our casters. Milky, in your way, take us away.
Thank you very much for that, Carrix. We are heading into game, and if any of our viewers got scared by a certain analyst bringing up the forbidden game that is Dota, don't worry. Clockwork will be terminated. He will not be back.
Actually, he's going to be back tomorrow.
He's going to be back after this game as well. However, you're right. Heading into Game 2 then, Team Wales were able to take Game 1. I won't say in comfortable fashion, but it almost looked rather comfortable. You know, a nice Sunday drive for them as they took Game 1 over SBTC. What do you want to see SBTC doing differently heading here into Game 2?
Well, the draft is completely different, right? They made a full 180. They now have the Jinx. They now have the team fighting late game front to back advantage with Jinx, Lulu, and Sejuani. I don't really think the solo lanes fit. I think the solo lanes are a little bit of a cope angle, as I said in Discord as well, where they just pick the two best champions for their solo lanes and just said, okay, we're gonna carry with individual advantages on Enpa and DR1. I do like the makings of those front-to-back team fights, though. Playing around Slater, who has been a really good AD carry, even though his first game was a bit that was just a Slater Kai'Sa thing. He's addicted to playing Kai'Sa, even though he loses every game for some reason. So now it's back to standard meta. His coach came in, his team came in and told him, just play Jinx and we win. And let's see if that's true.
I'm loving this interaction between Paulette and B. They're running off into the alcove. It's almost like when two people go to walk their dogs and then their dogs interact. And the owners are just like, look, just let them do their thing. And they're like just growling and barking at each other in the corner of the lane.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of the owners is actually able to contribute to the pushing and to the poke, which is Jinx, and the other doesn't even have an ability, so a little bit favored for the Palette dog in this case, who just missed a cannon minion, so now Slater hates him. But they get the early push, and that's quite important for SPTC, because this was one of the angles Team Wales always wanted to play around in the early game, get top and bot push, and enabled Killer Queen to play very aggressive in the invades, which is not going to be that easy in this kind of map setup. And Palette with a sneaky early gank in the mid lane.
Very nice scatter the week. Palette shows up into the mid lane, taking a leaf out of these. Glory able to sidestep the Dark Sphere. Oh, and if that Dark Sphere had landed, that would have certainly been first blood for SPTC.
Oh, Glory, such an insane...
DNK?
Oh, DNK doesn't actually go for it. That's a bit surprising, but Glory held his nerves at just nerves of steel, I should say, because honestly, it's probably better to flash there, but he had confidence in himself and just dodged that Q like it was nothing, like he wasn't playing against the legendary Syndra player that is DR1, just walks away, and the whole thing is muted now for SPTC.
And let's not forget, DR1 Syndra, his most played champion over the years. This season in particular, though, has only been able to have, I believe it is one game on the champion, which he was able to win with a rather healthy KDA of 6.0 for those stats aficionados.
Yeah, you don't understand the half of it. You were not there for the Syndra days
I was not, no.
Yeah, if you weren't there in 2020 spring, you do not understand what DR1 Syndra is about.
Is it better? Is it better than Harvey Syndra?
It's better than anything VCS has ever done. Like, it's one of those combinations that's probably as the same tier or even higher than Levi, Lee Sin and stuff. But we're going to talk about this later if he actually gets to pop off. I don't want to spoil too much, but yeah, DR1 Syndra is a thing everyone knows about.
Yeah, it'd help if he could land his Dark Spheres onto Glory, but that's a separate thing, right? Okay, that's all of my play for this game done. I promise. In the top lane, Nagiga getting this wave shoved in towards Enper, who is just trying to farm up on this Bureau, and once our top laners get to level 6, we might see a little bit more spice coming through.
Yeah, game once again very slow, which in the first game we saw actually favors Team Wales. They like to play the slow style. They're better in the mid-game macro. They understand objective setups a little bit better. Even if you look at the compositions, you would say, okay, SPTC like late game, and this nice sidestep from Palette, and he actually gets away from the auto-attack range. We have some crisp mechanics in this early game.
How did a staggering blow not come through from B? I thought that was, guaranteed. Sure, Palette sidesteps the dredge line, but you're just going to get auto-attack, stunned, and Killer Queen would follow. But somehow Palette able to survive, and our ADCs just being left to their own devices in the bottom lane, with Slater sporting just a rather small CS advantage in the first 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah, and thinking about the rest of the series, if SPTC lose this game against Aphelios, while they never play Aphelios with Slater, as the analyst said, he really does not like Aphelios, that's going to be a huge issue. They might even want to consider Vinboys then, because he's the Aphelios player, but of course that's still very far away. We do need to see Slater step up in this game, especially if you consider that that's probably the strongest point on the map for SPTC individually. But now Glory in trouble.
Glory getting caught out. Permafrost comes through into the scatter of the weekend. Unleashed power. DR1 with the unleashed first blood of the game.
Yeah, usually, back in the day, he was doing this alone, but now he needs a bit of assistance because Syndra is not as strong in the early game anymore. But still, first kill over to Syndra. She's now a really strong scaling champion. Gets to stack her weird little splinters or whatever it's called. So an early kill for the Syndra will give her a nice way into the late game. But now DNK, under a lot of pressure, needs to... Oh no, he got caught.
Poor little piggy Palette making his way up just to give some support for his jungler. DR1 coming in as well. Scatter the Weak won't be able to land, and Team Wales are being forced out of the SBTC jungle. Slater slowly trying to make his way up as well, but Team Wales going back on in. They know DNK is low, and they're saying, this is our jungle. We will not be forced out of it.
Yeah, this is what Killer Queen wants to do. He has been tamed by his coach, by B, and by this team in general. He's not the Killer Queen of 2021 winter anymore, where everything was just flipped at every minute of the game, which was very exciting to watch. But of course, the tendencies are still there. Now he's coming from behind with a flash stun.
Oh, the entire team collapsing beautifully. Killer Queen will take 2 tower shots, will be able to survive, but it is B who takes the spoils of war.
Bit unfortunate that B secured the kill there, I think through Q damage, because he's probably maxing E, but still, the kill, it would have been nicer if the kill went over to Killer Queen, especially because he invested ultimate and flash, so now he's actually quite vulnerable if he ever gets caught in the 2v2 or 3v3 situation. So, yeah, they invested double flash to get this kill, and the kill goes over to the Nautilus.
Oh,
Actually, if you look back on that, that is not a very good result. So now Wales needs to readjust and see if they can actually contest some of the objectives, missing crucial flashes on mid and jungle.
And Killer Queen and Glory are making their way up to the Rift Herald. They've spotted a piggy once more. And out comes Tibbers, out comes the dredge line. And it's another kill for Team Wales. And they want more, stealing away the Sejuani Soul. They're looking to Palette. Arctic Assault forward. They find the CC. Good slow from the Glitterlans, but locked down by the Incinerating. Glory will pick up his second kill.
And we finally get to see why they want to play Annie Viego so much. We actually didn't see any of that Annie Viego early game synergy in the last game. One glimpse into it just above the Herald Pit, I guess, last game. But they played it very slowly. They played it very defensively and just scaled for Vit. This game, they can't rely on Vit into with the AD carries being strong scalers on both sides. So this time, they are ready to fight. B is here all the time, the best roaming support in the league. We've seen this so many times, him appearing out of nowhere everywhere on the map. And Killer Queen is on the aggressive this time. Fight after fight after fight, invade after invade, and Glory and Killer Queen together are wreaking havoc.
And a good start for Team Wales here in Game 2. The start of this game feels cleaner, feels more impactful than what we saw in Game 1 from Team Wales. The question is, can they take this lead into the mid-game? Can they carry it through the mid-game, especially against Slader on this Jinx? Can Slader find some kills and get himself snowballing?
Glory is really on top of his game. We had some people doubt him because he hasn't been in playoffs all that often, and maybe we don't really know much about him yet, but his mechanics in this early game, especially when dodging some of the spells Dia1 is throwing at him, are looking really crisp. So it's a good start into the series. Double any games, of course, rather comfortable. Most played champion, really good win rate. Not the hardest champion to play either, so maybe we have to wait for him to play other champs. But you can only play what you're given, right? And his Annie so far is doing exactly what you want from an Annie. A lot of engages, a lot of pressure, assisting the jungler, and providing a really good setup for the rest of the team.
And Team Wales with the lane swap on the top side of the map. Rift Herald will be dropped down, and that's going to be some juicy gold for Vit in Killer Queen. First tower as well. I said earlier, can they get some gold into Slader? Well, it's Team Wales who are getting gold into their ADC right now.
Yeah, and once again, I want to point out that this is really not how Wales has been playing on average when you look at their stats in the season, because while they have a really good win rate in terms of games, and by far the second best team if you just look at the game score after GAM, they are usually behind in early towers. They don't really always go for early game tower pushes. They are really strong when it comes to first 3 towers, but their first tower average is pretty low. So in both of these games today, they've kind of reversed this trend and played more for early tower advantages, and you can see it's reflecting positively in their gold lead. They did give up the dragon in this game though, so we see a little bit more focus on early gold snowballs, on early items, as Glory needs to get away somehow.
Got the flash, unleash power, drops down the stopwatch, and the Super Mega Death Rocket will not be able to land. Glory will be able to survive.
Yeah, invested quite a lot there. Flash and stopwatch gone now, with nothing on the map. Once again, you might look at this in the replay and say, is it actually worth to invest stopwatch here? It's a 650 gold item, and you can't really get to Zhonya's in the next 10-15 minutes, because you're still working on your first item, so it might come back to bite them. It looks good because he didn't die, and they invested a lot to kill him, but I'm not so sure if this was the correct decision. Might have wanted to just give up his life and rely on stopwatch for the later team fights around Dragon in about 3 minutes.
or even the flash engagement. We talked about the inverse of this in regards to Enperskennen when he burnt a flash to be able to find a kill onto Nagia, then didn't have the flash slicing Maelstrom for the next fight, and it meant Team Wales were able to win, maybe not as a direct result of just a flash, but it was one of the contributing factors to Team Wales' success around the Soul Point Drake.
And now that you brought up Enper, we haven't talked about him at all. I don't think I've said the word Enper in this game once, because he's not done anything. He's just even in CS on the counter pick and top lane, and I'm not sure if that's good enough, because you are not supposed to go even on Fiora against K'Sante. I mean, in the early game it's fine, but now he really needs to show us that he can chase down the K'Sante, can push for solo kills, can actually get an advantage in the side lane, because if he doesn't, team fights are not going to favor Fiora on an even state.
Yeah, some tower plays being picked up by Glorious Nick here, just having a little look towards the mid lane, seeing if he can fish out a potential engage. No such luck, and Glory just going to be a little bit shy of being able to pick up one extra tower plate. But now Team Wales are migrating over to the bottom side. They've spotted a little jinx, and they were thinking maybe we could find an angle to engage, but in the end, they just back out of a potential play.
Yeah, you can see the evolution of players like Killer Queen there. 2 years ago, I think he probably goes for the dive with a different support.
2 years ago, 6 months ago, he would have gone for that dive.
Yeah, that's actually fair, yeah. So it's really good to see this jungler that has so much potential. Everyone was so hyped when he came into the league for his Lee Sin mechanics. I think back to some of the carry games in winter 2021. And yeah, his mechanics are still crisp, but he's also learned how to play the game in a pro level, not just in a solo queue level. So that's always good to see. We like to have those special games where he completely goes off every now and then, but of course, in a pro setting, more often than not, you want the consistency. You still want aggression, but you want useful aggression. You want judicious aggression, not just completely throwing everything.
What we're saying is Killer Queen has gone from this like raw kind of aggression to more calculated. He's gone from being a psychopathic jungler to being a sociopathic jungler.
Maybe. Yeah. First step towards
Does that work?
Sure. Why not?
I'm now trying to think of like villains from blockbuster movies who are sociopathic versus psychopathic, because I never get the difference right between the two.
Well, for now, I feel like we need to focus on some of the support surrounding cast as well. We talked a lot about Glory. Not a lot of really footage to talk about Nagia so far, just playing a standard tank top lane game. And this is actually one of his best champions, in my opinion, when it comes to individual understanding of the champion. Probably the best K'Sante in the league, even though his win rate is not looking great. But some of the things he has done on K'Sante have been amazing. So far, not really all that much focus on top lane, which is really confusing to me, because both of these top laners are huge carries for their teams. But it's all about the bot lane meta, it's all about the hyper carries, and because it's about the bot lane meta, I think it's quite good for SPTC to get yet another dragon.
And they're teleporting in to secure this as well, because Team Wales Killer Queen picking up the Rift Herald while all of this was unfolding. And now that they have the Rift Herald, maybe they can look for a play in the mid lane, but Enper looking to get a kill onto Nagia has issued the Grand Challenge. Very nicely played by Nagia to deny the proc riposte use. Enper will get the kill under tower and will be able to survive as well.
And there is the Fiora finally starting to... Ooh, nice stop there from DNK. Nicely smited away the second charge, but there is the all-important side lane exploitation, I guess, from Enper, just winning in the 1v1, and that's going to be crucial for SPTC. Now, we haven't really seen SPTC win macro games that play around split pushing and side laning super often. They're more of a team fighting chaos style team, but maybe this is the game where they've changed their focus and can really push Enper as their main carry into victory. They did lose another objective in the mid lane, so gold-wise, it's not actually that great of a play. As you can see, Wales extended their gold lead to almost 3k now. But the top lane matchup is the one hope, the one silver lining for SPTC, because Fiora can run away with this game.
So a little bit of a tangent I want to go on here your way, because I saw this really cool video recently, and it was about Fiora and how quickly you can proc all of the Grand Challenge procs. Do you know what the record is for how quickly that can be done?
0.15?
not 0.15. It's not that ridiculous. I think it's about 0.3, 0.4. But do you know how it's done?
Probably some Q flash shenanigans. No, I actually have no idea about Fiora. It's one of those champions I've barely played a single game on.
So if you go like standard Fiora, I'll hold that thought as Nagia being somewhat caught out by DNK, but he is a tanky Cassante and will be able to survive this without much issue. But if you go standard kind of Fiora, you can do it in about 0.6, 0.7 seconds. You use like the Gore Drinker to be able to proc one of the vitals, and then you can like flash around and do all of that kind of stuff. The actual quickest way to do it is by taking Gale Force and timing the Gale Force so that when you Gale Force, each of the 3 Gale Force procs one of the different vitals, and then you flash for the final one, and it is beautiful.
It's not going to happen this game, of course, but
no, it's not.
It is NP's most played champ, so you expect him to be on top of the mechanics. Vid might have overstepped because he already flashed, but good Gale Force to safety. They did lose the tower, though, and that's a good little exploit from SPTC. Now, they need to be careful not to overstay, and they're already running away into their own jungle, because, of course, with their mana and HP bars right now, they can't fight. And actually, Team Wales has a slight opening to go for Baron, if they want to. It would be an aggressive call, but I actually would really like it, because look at especially the mana for Palette. He's not a champion right now. He can't contribute to anything in this fight. So, instead, they find Tier 1.
Looking for a potential flank, almost gets caught out by Nagia, and the flanker becomes the flankee. But it is Team Wales who sport a rather healthy 3k goal lead, and we kind of talked about how this game is very different from Game 1. Game 1, we saw Team Wales prioritizing Drakes over Rift Heralds. Here, it's been the complete inverse. Team Wales getting the first 2 Rift Heralds, SBTC able to get the first 2 Drakes, but unlike in Game 1 from SBTC, Team Wales have been able to use those Rift Heralds to get more of a tangible lead.
Yeah, but a huge difference in this game, of course, is also the scaling on SPTC's side. So they don't really care all that much about the 3k gold deficit, because they have Jinx, and Syndra is actually a really good scaler now as well. So yeah, you can't ignore it's not the old Syndra, where we would say Syndra is not actually that great in the late game. No, new Syndra is actually really strong, control mage, scaling champion in the late game too. So I think SPTC, they have adapted some of their aggression as well, and they're playing a much more Wales-like game in this one as well, and this just results in us having 5 kills at 20 minutes, unfortunately.
Nagia pulling Emperor across the map, and Emperor says, okay, I'll take this tower, and now I'll duel against you with the Grand Challenge. The rest of Team Wales is here, but surely Emperor gets the kill. No, Nagia is
no
on the
way.
run, flashing away, and Vit will say, I'll take that kill. Nagia dangle the carrot in front of Emperor, and Emperor thought it was free.
But it's 2 outer towers for SPTC. They are outplaying Team Wales on the map right now, which is such an interesting development after game number 1, where it was the complete opposite. So a little bit of a change in pace, and both of these teams showing different styles. But now Team Wales, advantage on the map, but Enper has TP. If SPTC can somehow stall the Baron take, they could collapse and maybe get a huge advantage here. They have Jinx, who loves this place to fight as well. This is so risky. Enper way too early. DNK, no!
Tippers, DNK way too early into the pit. Staying alive for ages. Scatter the weak, and Baron finishes off the kill onto Killer Queen. No, by Slater. Stolen away, SPTC. They steal everything. Not only do they get the 2 outer towers, but they get the Baron Nashor as well.
Oh, with a W, a Jinx W stole the Baron. Usually you see her fire across the whole map with an ultimate, and then you can kind of understand, because the ultimate is 1,200 damage cap, but it's a W, it's a zap over the wall. Wales was so close to a really good call. I actually really liked how they stopped dragon damage on the Baron, focused on DNK, who came over way too early, and then they just fumbled the smite. This one is on Killer Queen.
And I just want to see, how does Killer Queen lose all of his health?
Killer Queen actually dies, so they don't have the smite. Yeah, that's true. I kind of lost track of that. So then it's understandable. You should still position the bear a little bit closer to the wall, so it can block the the zap. Because you should never lose it to a zap there. You can lose the Baron to a Syndra Skillshot or even a Slater auto attack, realistically, because you don't have the smite. But
the question is, like, how can they even prevent it? What is the highest damage ability that Team Wales have once Killer Queen is gone? Is it Glory QW combo?
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it is a flip at that point, yeah. But losing it to a zap is a little silly because you can always block a skill shot like that. But in the end, with Killer Queen going down, it was just 50-50, and now that is a huge swing, especially because SPTC also just comfortably walked to the bot side of the rift and got their soul point too. So suddenly, Team Wales, after being ahead for the whole game, finds themselves in a precarious situation. Really good cleanse from Slater, but he has to flash too. That is huge.
Yeah, B coming on the flank and Slater thinking, whoa, I did not sign up for this, as Nagia didn't sign up for being two-man ganked in the top lane. Another kill going over to SBTC, and another tower will be falling to Emperor.
And suddenly the game looks almost unsalvageable from Team Wales. They one botched call, one execution error, and the Jinx, the late game scaling team fighting composition with a dragon advantage, just gets off to such a strong position in the game. Now there's one more fight at least to be had around the soul, and if Team Wales gets a good opportunity, a good flank on top of Slater, maybe there could be an angle, because Slater is missing his cleanse, he's missing his flash, he doesn't have a meek curls from Palette, so the only thing I can see for Wales to come back into the game is really to eliminate Slater from the equation early on in the team fight. But even then, there's so much power in some of the other positions. DR1 is close to level 16. Enper is close as well to another item, or at least already has 2 items, which makes him quite strong in team fights too. So it's an uphill battle for Team Wales.
Let's not forget, both ADCs only on 2 items. They're not incredibly strong, and Slade is not as strong as Vit was on this Jinx when he had a Runan's Hurricane very early on into the game. But that fight over the next Drake is going to be pivotal, particularly for Team Wales if they want to stay in the game, as DNK almost landing. But he does land the next spell. Scatter Unleash Power picks up the kill, and SBTC are just charging forward, not holding anything back. Vit trying to kite back from Emper, can't land the riposte, and now Emper locked down. Vit will be able to take the kill, makes it a 1-for-1 overall.
Yeah, weird timing to fight, honestly, because Dragon is still 2 minutes away, so a little bit of a nothing fight, and they end up going 1-for-1. Kill over to Vit is not bad, but both of the summoner spells missing for the Dragon fight, so actually kind of like that. Playing aggressively before Dragon spawns just to bait the enemy into a fight and maybe get their summoner spells. Because now Vit is pretty vulnerable to collapse from DNK, even from Emper again. I think this was still a positive fight for SBTC, but it didn't really do anything for them in terms of game state. The game is still in the exact same state as before, and it's all about the next Dragon fight. 1.5 minutes. This game is going to come down to that. SBTC has all the trump cards on their side, so I feel like we're very likely to go to a 1-1 scorer after this game. SBTC fighting back and team fighting.
But I think you hit the nail on the head there, Yulway. The fact that Vit also, along with Slater, doesn't have a flash available, doesn't have a cleanse available, and that small advantage that we were saying that Team Wales might have is going to be gone, because Slater is going to have his cleanse back up in time for the fight. Sure, he won't have a flash available, but having a cleanse against any CC, even Killer Queen CC, if he's able to land the W, the Spectral more, is going to be so clutch.
Yeah, there's a slight item issue for Slater. He's so close to IE, but he's not going to get it for the Dragon fight, which would be such a huge spike, so not quite as strong as we would like him to be. But some of the other members are more than making up for his lack of IE. He's still a strong damage dealer, and he's aided by DR1 being insanely strong. Even DNK can pose quite a challenge to some of the other members on the other team. So this is still a favorable fight for SPTC, but DNK needs to be... Oh, he found the ultimate!
Emper coming to the flank, but down has gone Vit already. Emper won't even be needed for this play. It is just B and Nagia left standing, and they aren't the biggest damage dealers. And there is nothing that B can do on this Nautilus. Will be able to flash over the wall. DNK, though, will flash in pursuit, but I don't know where B's going. He's on the wrong side of the map, and the rest of SPTC are pushing forward in the mid lane to end the game.
B just using his Q, and nice little steps. Yeah, B's dancing with DNK, and he's kind of winning it at the moment, but now DNK will go.
No blast cone.
Wait.
There is no way. There is no way B's
again? Finish the game. Let B live. Let B live.
B will fall. SPTC will take game 2, and we'll head into game 3 perfectly tied.
What a dominant performance from SPTC to come back into the series, and it looks like whoever picks Jinx wins the game so far. So I'm gonna be glued to my screen and see where is the Jinx going for game number 3. Back to blue side, just first pick Jinx this time. Do we ban the Jinx? Yeah, could be a ban angle, and it's just a back-to-back team fighting performance from both of the ADCs, just looking really comfortable on the champion. Whoever wins the team fights wins the game, and SPTC find that huge exploit around the Baron buff.
Before we go to a break, I do want to just point out one thing about the Jinx. Jinx was an issue in game 1. I do not think the Jinx was the issue in game 2. I think that was Team Wells kind of throwing with that period of 2 minutes where they gave away the 2 outer towers, then they threw away the Baron. Not the Jinx.
2 games, 2 wins.
Very true. And on that note, we're going to be heading into a break, and when we return, our analyst desk will be breaking down game 2 and taking us into game 3. Stay tuned.
Tell me where do I go? Tell me where do I take us? Your heart is starting to slow. May the water be safe. As I dive in, blood stains washing underneath the waves. I'll be reaching out to keep you safe. As we fall, I can't hold on much longer. We're drifting down to the other side. Try to pull us under. Keep holding out for the other side.
KDA, should we show them how we do it every day? Let's get it. that girl Kali gon' girl Kali gon' stop Kali gon' skirt Kali got a job Kali got a word 뜨거워 언제나 don't get burned 넘쳐 흘러물 든 a rough it 죽여주잖아 like a buffet 누가 감히 on my outfit 그 문 열지 마 that's a rough day I'm giving you more cause I'm greater than 필요 없는 시험들 다 뿐이미 But all of my numbers are talking back 부루마법 message monopoly 눈종이 돈이나 real money 필요 없대 너네들이 많은 돈들 go get it go get it go get it 또 미션 눈을 못대 못해 그래 너도 get it cause I got it different
All I ever know is life upon the throne. 시작하면 끝을 보는 거야. You want more? No, I got it so ego. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it and never running low. Yeah, I got more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it like boom, boom, blow your mind. Never giving less than it's how it'll stay. You know I got it like all day, all the time. When I go, it's so dope, get it cool, but I'm cold. I don't fit in a mold, I'm a rebel. I don't do what you say, making moves. I don't wait while I smile in your face. I got different DNA. What's higher than the top? That's me. Come take a look before falling on my feet. 조용히 몸을 숙여봐. So take a look, 나를 기억해, queen. All I ever know is life upon the throne. 시작하면 끝을 보는 거야. You want more? No, I got it so ego. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it and never running low. Yeah, I got more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it like boom, boom, blow your mind. Never giving less than it's how it'll stay. You know I got it like all day, all the time. Way out, 感觉犹如海浪的微浪，不断往前，oh you never way down. This is how I do it every day. Wow, wow. 这一路上的奇迹都记住了你的每一个瞬间，无比的耀眼。I know you want some more， 准备好就一起走，Give it need more。No, I got it so ego. You look like you could use some more. No, I got it and never running low. Yeah, I got more than enough, set it up and away. You know I got it like boom, boom, blow your mind. Never giving less than it's how it'll stay. You know I got it like all day, all the time.
Welcome back, everybody, and we are back to even Stevens as SPTC takes game 2. Once again, my name is Carries. With me is Marvin Ogie and Clockwork, and we're going to get right into it with the elephant in the room because there was one play that made the difference in this game. Okay, I'm being told by our producer that we're not going straight into it, but so we will delay it.
Okay, let me. Am I allowed to complain a bit before the replay?
You two go. My producer's yelling at me.
Right. This game was exactly like it was staged. It had to be staged to make us analysts look like idiots because everything went like opposite as we explained in the pregame. So early game started very well for Wales. It went fantastic actually. SPDC were bleeding pressure, plates, towers all over the map, and you were just like waiting to lose or something. And at some point, we know that B had like great impact on the team's calls, and he made this wonderful call at like 20 something minutes to go for the Baron, and that completely crashed everything in the Wales plan. And from there on, it was all SPTC, and the mid game was all theirs. So it was like I was watching the game with the inverted tags because that was very wrong. I don't know, Mabi, your turn to complain now.
Why would you go for Baron at 20 minutes? Like, Denon, you've only killed the split pusher. You haven't killed Jinx, you haven't killed Dia, you haven't killed the jungler, you've killed the Fiora. we're gonna go through it again. Look, you see, Fiora's dead. Dia1 teleporting in. Either they just misjudged that wire his teleport and thought they'd have a 4v3, but either way, they have to play this so scared because Slater and Dia1 can just play safe. They're over the wall the whole time. They try to burst down Dia1 and they play the pull off of the damage well, but they can't kill an Aftershock Sejuani with a full mythic item at this early on. They don't have the burst yet. And then Killer Queen dies because he's tanking Baron the whole time. He helps Scatter the Weak over the wall. Emperor revives in time, and then it's just, you've got a Baron on a Fiora, and Nagia is already losing that matchup. It's just disaster. They could have just taken that, moved to the bot lane, picked up a free dragon, and carried on the game as usual, but they lost it right there.
Yeah.
The VCS is for the mentally sane. And
me!
I unironically missed these games. I came back for this.
Okay, so aside from don't throw it, Baron, how do Wales take game number 3? Is it as simple as don't throw it, Baron?
Well, that's the dominant advice that I would give them. But under that, like, of course, let's open a bit the jar. I think this Jinx is starting to prove like the salvage point for Slater. You have to take that pick away. Yue already mentioned in the series, this pick is going to be crucial in the series. Any first pick at this point becomes much less valuable. You have to go, if you're blue side again for Wales, you have to go for the Jinx. You have to pinch Slater's pool as much as possible, and possibly even Emperor's, because like he had a lot of agency in this matchup. But like without this Jinx, I think SPDC would have had a much harder time closing the game after that Baron.
Yeah, I think that the Jinx is definitely going to be a big point of contention as the series goes on. I think series meta will evolve into who gets Jinx a little bit, but yeah, I also think I definitely agree that trying to controlling Emperor a little bit more is necessary. That K'Sante just could not get the job done against Fiora. And again, I don't think it's ever worth trying to ban out Dia1. Maybe keep that Tristana on the board because he's a really good Tristana, but sure, you threw bans at him you threw a ban or two at him in the second phase, but he's not that big a Veigar player. He's not that big whatever the other ban was. But you know what he is good at? He's good at Syndra. You know what Syndra's good into? Annie. So because you can throw Tibbers right back at us. So I think, yeah, you just have to cop the fact that Dia1 is probably going to get a counter pick if you're prioritizing Annie this highly, and just focus on making sure your side lanes are good.
However, now Wales are going to be red side, right?
Maybe. We don't know. Probably.
See in drafts, it seems that usually I like in other regions, hearing that like blue side is very much advantaged, but in this series it seems like the power of counter picks and having red side is showing to be much more valuable.
Yeah, I mean, that does just sort of sometimes happen, particularly in as aggressive and hands-checky regions as the VCS. Counter picks do reign supreme. Also, when you have a player named Emperor on your team, if he gets a counter pick, it's pretty good, and you really also want to counter pick him as much as you can. Speaking of counter picks, we have talked a fair bit about the draft. We've talked about the Jinx, but I do want to look up towards the top lane. What are we doing about Fiora, Barbie?
What are we doing about Fiora? I feel either you're gonna try something that you have two options. Either something that actually performs like that, you sack the lane completely and go for something that is just pure team fight. You can say, wasn't that K'Sante? Not really. K'Sante kind of straddles is a bit more of a lane dominant tank, and not having that instant snap CC other than his ult, which turns off tank mode, means he's not really your best straight up engaged tank. So maybe something move into more the Scion, maybe the Renekton for that flash stun. It could be something to work with. or you just realize, okay, if we're picking our top lane ahead of time, we're just gonna have to work a little bit harder to ban out Enper. I think Enper fits the similar category to Slater. His champion pool is not terribly large, but he's really, really good at the champions he's good at, which is why he was like 88 solo kills last season. Well, I think it was something absurd like that. Definitely 40 in summer, and he's still topping the charts today in solo this split in solo kills as well. So good at what he plays.
Something we've seen in both games so far is Wales banning 3 ADCs. I don't think they should be doing that anymore. Like, if you're banning 3 ADCs and Slater is still getting Jinx, what the hell are you doing? Like, Xayah, okay, fair enough. Xayah is the premier ADC. Maybe that needs to get banned. But if you're using all of your bans on AD carries, I know that Tristana is a flex ban with their one. It's definitely, it's a ban. Sure, that's fair. But still, I still think the bans are wrong. I would still say just play against the Trist.
Yep.
I don't think the Trist is that dangerous compared to just throwing one ban at Enper.
Right, I agree. And Carrix and Mabi, while you were casting VCS for the last few months, I have studied the blade. And the blade cannot cut the rock. This is a very obvious thing to say, and SBTC apparently accounted for the Malphite to be picked, but just screw it. Just go with it anyway. You're that good, Nagia. Like, just go with it. And of course, the Tristana is also going to be addressed by the Malphite because physical damage. He doesn't feel it. So yeah, just go for it, and you can save yourself a Tristana ban that you can drop on Emperor. So yeah, it looks like very surface. There's probably a lot more thought into Wales' big mind. They have a big brain, so whales are big. But still, go for it. Give it a chance. One game.
I also feel like you don't need, especially when you're on blue side, it might just be worth first picking the Xayah yourself. It's Fitz most played by a long shot, but we're going to be back on red side. They're going to ban the Wukong themselves.
This makes no sense. I don't understand this.
It's setting up a Jinx area trade. That's what's going on. I don't necessarily think Wukong was the ban.
But I feel like if you're
getting it, but
I feel like this is going to lead Wales to shoot. Okay, if they picked Varus, then what I'm about to say is irrelevant. Okay, they picked Varus, so I'm not going to bother talking because I didn't expect that. Analysts, draft is your time to shine.
Varus
first pick, confusing. Good, but confusing.
It's certainly fallen out of favor, but I can definitely see it trying to once again try and do the punish bot lane early angle. But at least Killer Queen wants to try and win the early game straight away, and with a Jace in pocket, and that can go into either lane. Still gonna have a nice combo to work with if that cocoon lands. Should result in a dead solo laner.
Give me that fire, and that opens up also for the Renekton top lane. Probably they can give Nagia such champions like that can fare well in the weak side. Of course, not yet, maybe not blind, but at the same time, I love that Wales want to go full early game because, as I said before, early game was actually fantastic. They have had a great time. And Killer Queen was all over the map, granting plates to both side lanes. And I think with this Elise, he can do that even more efficiently. So, great. I just noticed that Jace is building, so no Renekton. But this is also a possibility for flex. I have seen some Jace mid lane being played in this season in other regions. So, it's not impossible. Unlikely, but not impossible.
Yeah, the Gragas and the Xante are going to go in. So they basically just decided we are counter-picking the Jace no matter what lane it goes into straight off the bat. And also providing it something a little bit tankier makes it harder for this Elise to get off the ground. This is a very interesting start to the draft, but going for the Malphite now means you're letting the AD carry pool get pinched even further. That should just be a Jinx and
I want to point out
the table.
I want to point out that Malphite mid is also possible. We have seen a nasty infamous full AP Malphite in EU Masters, in EMEA Masters, and it absolutely rocked.
Yeah, I wonder why you're bringing that player up. Bit of bias, but the rock is there. I mean, I'd love to see the full AP Malphite man. I'd be into that. I'm not gonna lie.
We have seen a full AP
Sejuani?
Malphite top lane as well, thanks to Mr.
He can just, like, Glory could just play his whole game with his screen on Slater.
Just locked on.
Just laser
Caitlyn
focused.
removed?
Ah.
I mean,
Okay,
you
so
have to be banning
the-
Jinx. It has to be a Jinx ban.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wales.
so the readers, I guess, they don't want to see Wales. They don't want Wales to try and match them in the early game with a Kate Lux type thing. That's my read.
I
on
mean,
that
if
ban.
you had
But-
Caitlyn Lux Elise, like that's a nightmare.
So early pick gonna. So I think Jinx as well should be the ban, but okay.
Lucian,
Jinx,
yeah, I was saying.
yeah, it has,
They're okay
My
with
guess
Vic
was
getting.
ban Jinx, pick Lucian Nami, but this, and the Silas ban can make it possible.
Yeah, I mean, so the read here is that they want to force Vit to play a scaling ADC. They want to force him onto something like the Zeri that is currently hovering. I don't necessarily think this is a terrible idea, quite frankly. I think this makes sense because now where are you playing around? If you're Killer Queen, you're on this Elise. You don't have reliable CC in Malphite or Jace, pre-6 at least. Obviously, post Malphite does. So where are you playing? Like, what is Elise doing in the early game? Because you don't really want to gank with Zeri lane.
This is why I would have much preferred the Jinx. A, you have rockets to sort of counterbalance the push from the Varus, and also you can, like, if you put Jinx next to a support with good CC, you have follow-up inbuilt with the traps, so you can chain that CC even longer if needed. But no, they're going to go for Zeri, and it's going to be up to what the support is to really activate this Elise. The Nautilus is going to be taken off the board, as it's going to actually be Gragas in the jungle for DMK after these bans come through, and it's a good individual answer, but composition-wise, it does kind of mean this Elise is really out of place.
Yeah, Elise does nothing in this game. I actually think SBTC drafted Wales into an absolute corner.
However,
So, I mean-
on the other hand,
Go on.
SPDC might lack a bit of damage. I don't know if, like, past 25 minutes, I don't know, Syndra after the rework
Syndra,
scales is bad.
She does. Her scaling is fantastic. But I do have to cut you both off because we need to throw a little bit early. So I want one word from either of you. Marby, Wales or chicken?
Team Wales.
That's 2 words. Clockwork, Wales or chicken?
Spider.
So, chicken.
Wales.
Or Wales. Wales, okay. Clockwork takes Wales. With that, I'm going to throw over to our casters. Your way, Milky. Off you go.
Thank you very much for that, Carrix. A best of 5 your way? No, a best of 3.
Yeah, and while our analysts were babbling on and on and on, I know you, Milky, used the break to contact the Team Wales coaching staff. So please tell us, what do the Wales have to do differently for game number 3 to go better?
Now, I will tell you, but as everyone knows, I'm Milky Cereal, therefore I have to be difficult. So we're going to charade this out. So, your way.
Okay, they need a Hecarim, maybe? What is that? They need to jump into the water? No? What? Huh? What is happening here, Milky? Yeah, they're swimming. Okay.
Wales!
Yes, the Wales. Yes.
So,
Okay, they don't. Okay, yeah. Ah, they shouldn't throw at Baron.
there you go, your way. Wales don't need to throw. We're heading into game, though, for game number 3 between Team Wales and SBTC. Wales over on the red side, SBTC over on the blue side. And before anyone in chat flames me, I just want everyone to think how on earth they would charade so well, because I cannot think of any way to actually do that.
I mean, to be honest, We talked only about the whales. I'm not sure why you even tried to charade the whales. It was clear from the start that we were talking about the whales. But okay, well, whatever.
Okay, but in more seriousness, let's talk about the matchup that we do have at hand, because I see Elise, therefore I scream about Elise and I look at where can Elise play, and to me it has to be around Glory in the mid lane.
Yeah, that was my first instinct as well, but I do feel like this is another one of those Killer Queen aggro games where they just want to perma-invade, because they did play the Elise just about a week ago in game number, I think it was 1, I can quickly check, and they did play a very, very aggressive style of Elise. It was permanently in the enemy jungle. Now, one of the most important things to act... Nagia's dead, I think.
Nagia, Emperor, can you outplay this? Just needs a couple more flashes under the tower.
Nicely done.
And the solo kill Emperor returns.
That was a really cool solo kill too, because he kind of subverted expectations there. Nagia knows his way around Cassandra, so the obvious thing there was to do like a flash auto attack to finish the kill, but instead he flashed early, used his Q auto attack in the... Yeah, really nice. And actually, that's a huge kill for the tank matchup, because Cassandra, even though we're looking at that matchup and say, it's tank against tank, wet noodle fight, yada yada, that's not actually the case in Cassandra lanes, because he can punish tanks really, really heavily. We've seen Cassandra against Sion get 30 CS leads, and with this early solo kill and both summoners blown from Nagia, I think he's in for a world of hurt over there in the top lane.
And, DNK being forced out of his jungle, so Killer Queen doing what you kind of expected here, Yulway, being very aggressively, and maybe this is where Team Wales and BF said, right, Killer Queen, do you remember how you used to play in 2022? Right, that's how you're playing in this game. You are holding nothing back, full out aggression.
There's
and
the mid gang.
Killer Queen looking towards the mid lane. Good scatter the weak. As was that the cocoon that landed as well?
Yeah,
Oh,
I was very surprised by that too. That cocoon traveled half the map, I feel like. Yeah. Okay, but this is exactly how Team Wales played their first game in the tiebreaker series against SPTC. They played in even more aggressive bot lane, or even more pushing bot lane. They actually played Caitlyn Lux in that game, just to give Killer Queen all the freedom in the bot side to invade permanently. This is just what Killer Queen did right here again. Invaded first red buff, stole away the first red buff this time around. Last time he actually died for it, so this is already a better start. On the bot side of the map, unfortunately, this time around, Nagia is struggling.
And I think it's also time here, Yulway, for a quick, milky, fun stat. And the fun stat for this segment is, how many games do you think Nagia has on Malphite this season, and how many has he won?
I don't know. 3 games, 2 victories?
5 games, 5 victories. He's got 6 all-time games on Malphite. He lost his other game on Malphite, which might have been a couple of seasons ago. And now Nagia roaming down towards DNK, saying, how dare you invade my lovely spider, taking her chickens. And DNK saying, well, I'm on the chickens, so you're not allowed to take chickens, but Killer Queen will get them nonetheless.
Yeah, and just finishing the point on the Malphite, Nagia played it in game 3, and the deciding game in that tiebreaker as well. He was completely put into the dumpster, that time not by an Emperor alone, but just by doubling and tripling down and diving him over and over again. He was 0-3 at the start of the game, I think even 0-4 at some point. And then they just won every single team fight, and he actually played amazingly in those team fights. So there's always hope. Nagia is a pretty complete player. I've actually been so amazingly impressed by him, because he was kind of on the edges of the good top laner threshold, I feel like. He was just one class below the Hasmats and Yoshinos of old, I guess. But now he has really come into his own. I would have voted for him as #1 top laner if you just talk about the regular season. And you know how much I love my Kiaya, so this player has really come into his own, in my opinion.
Yeah, and kind of this split, the narratives changed from, if we remember back to last year, Enper being this huge standout top laner who was just dominating everyone out of nowhere. We call him, lovingly the Emperor now. This split, he kind of fell off a little bit, and we've been talking about, okay, Nagia is now this top laner who's risen up to really challenge Kiaya at the top of the top laner rankings, if we could say that. However, this series is looking like Emper's slowly coming back in, and that's been kind of encapsulated by that solo kill that we just saw from Emper.
Yeah, and I actually don't think Enper has been Enper's performance has been weak in this split. I feel like the overall level of top lane is finally really strong at the VCS again, because you have to consider Yoshino is coming back. Yoshino is a legendary top laner, and he didn't just come back. He actually came back in top form. We still have Kiaya. Okay, Husband has had a little bit of a stinker for split. That's fair. But then Nagia has only gotten better since entering the league. Hero has always been a really good laner. So even though late game, mid game, he's not the greatest, as Nagia is under pressure, but he should be able to ult out of here. Oh, or is he?
Flash engaged though from Emper. Nagia still has flash available and instead decides to use the ult to escape, as Team Well's being a bit aggressive. B though taking a lot of damage now. Flash forward from Slater. Thank you very much for the kill. They look to Vic. He burns the cleanse. He burns the flash, but he is not getting out of this. Hook, line, and sinker. Double kill for Slater.
And I didn't want to bring up the Slater stats because he has not been having a lot of success even throughout his whole career on the Varus. But who cares if he performs today? Because first pick Varus looked scary after all those ADC bans, but he gets the double kill. Really nice setup. Okay, 1 kill back, Lori with a nice roam, but still 2 kills into the pockets of Slater, and that's a Varus with an advantage in lane. That means that Zeri is gonna suffer, because now they can probably just force fights all the time. Usually it's kind of hard to fight Nautilus into Braum, as we've seen early on in the game, where the Nautilus just needs to be very defensive, because if he goes in and gets isolated, the Braum deals more damage and just is more tanky. But in this case now, where the Varus is such a huge advantage, I think this bot lane is good to go and play more aggressively for the next few minutes.
And I do really want to praise Palette, not just for this game, but for this series, because, again, I remember to all of my time spent here in the VCS, you always think of V as this amazing macro support, always roaming around the map. B hasn't found a lot of opportunities to do those roams, and whenever he has, Palette has been there to match those roams, and Palette has just been seemingly a little bit better as well in terms of the individual lane matchups, as we see Nagia flashing out of the chains of corruption from Slater.
Yeah, and Palette getting back into form is such a huge boon for the league, because the new era of supports with B and Taki especially has been exciting, but we always wanted to see Palette also be good. Oh, Emper, he does have a lot of defensive tools in his arsenal. Can he live?
The cocoon does land. Ultimate used by Vic. Emper down to half health, but Team Wells can just now look for second dive. Emper though pulling Killer Queen out of the tower range, playing this dive so beautifully is Emper, and now the wave is temporarily gone, but Team
much
Wave
time.
can look for a third dive onto Emper, because the third wave has arrived, and Elise is such a good champion when it comes for diving.
Wait a sec. Oh, Killer Queen!
Killer Queen just dies! And Vic almost took another tower shot. Meanwhile, in the top lane, SBTC play their 2v1 beautifully. Not only do they get a kill, they drop down the Rift Herald and pick up first tower pre-10 minutes.
Wales is falling apart. This is Cassandra we're talking about. It's a full HP Cassandra. You only bring 1 consistent damage dealer. This is an aggressive 2v3 actually, but B might be doomed to die here.
Split available with the Entofo strikes knocked around though, the Ignite ticking down. Vic just needs
no
one more
way.
Sniped down though by the Q from Glory, and it is a shutdown for the Team Wells mid laner.
It's all about Glory now. This is the Glory story. He actually carried his team so hard in one of the Jace games as well last week. In general, a really, really strong player when it comes to team fighting, and Jace is one of really strong champions, as we see the dive on the gear. Much better. The way they set up this dive is so much better than on the bot side, just playing around the edges of the tower range, and Nagia never actually getting into the position where he could try to counterplay with the tower on his 8. So now SPTC, 4k gold ahead at 10 minutes. What just happened?
God. That, the replay that we saw off the top side, I thought that was a live play for a second, so I went full into casting it, and then I realized, wait, hang on, that's not live. I got somewhat caught out by seeing the fact that there was still a tower in the outer lane, but a very, very impressive start from SPTC, and now Glory and B roaming up to the mid lane, daring DR1 to step up too far forward, and Team Wells with this little death brush that they have planned.
Yeah, now we need to talk about Elise, because as some of the analysts were very critical of this Elise, I wanted to hold off judgment because I know this is something Team Wales likes to do. Very aggressive jungler picks with perma invades, as we see again. Unfortunately for DNK, he is not allowed to get any of his own red buffs, but it doesn't really matter. He's actually ahead in CS compared to an Elise. And the ganks haven't been great, so now this Elise is just on the downwards trajectory for the rest of the game because she's Elise, and Elise is not that much of a champion later on. So we need to be... I mean, we kind of have to pose the question now, is Team Wales just lost in their own drafts a bit? Because if Game 1 was so dominant and so well played, just front-to-back team fighting, it looked so comfortable for them, and the next 2 games, I'm not entirely sure what's happening.
And Team Wales have been really linear over the last few minutes. Kind of what you highlighted your way, the fact that, right, they need to play around Glory now. Is the Glory story 2-0. And that's all they've been doing, just trying to look to the mid lane. And Dia1 knows exactly what the plan of Team Wales is. Wales now trying to get this Drake, bit of a death brush. They're looking up for Emperor, who just walks right on in as Nagi engages with the ultimate. DNK low, goes golden. One
what?
Flashing out of the scat of the week. But it doesn't matter, he's not able to get the kill onto DNK, and now Team Wales on the back foot as SBTC are just snowballing their goal lead insanely well. Now 5,000 gold ahead, and we're not even 13 minutes into the game.
It keeps getting worse and worse for Wales, and they just double down on the bad fights. You have a Zeri, try to play for late game. You know you're better in the mid game, and even if you're 5k gold down right now, you have the first dragon. There's no need to fight right now. And they way over-indexed into that one pick, but they just don't have the damage. They might have the damage to kill Slater, but good flash and good dodge as well. Slater just walks away.
Yeah, Killer Queen trying to predict Slater sidestepping to the right. Instead, sidesteps to the left, and this is the engage from Team Wales.
Yeah, and Viv tries to stay safe, but he needs to deal the damage, and then, that was on the edge with the Gragas ultimate. The flash might... Yeah, I mean, I don't want to blame it from the flash too much. I think the angle wasn't the correct one. He could have flashed downwards, but in the end, the Gragas cast spelled his doom anyway. Now he's lost his flash too, 5k gold deficit, so now it's on Wales to really just sit back, just... zoom out, and here is where B's presence and the veteran presence is really called for, where they have to calm down their teammates, right? 0-3 top laner, jungler with an early game champion really far behind. They now need to just step back and do a bit of really good calm shot calling. Okay, we still have a Zeri, we still have a Braum, we still have strong team fighting. Our Jason is in a good position to catch waves and not die on the side lanes too. Let's just chill for 20 minutes and let Zeri scale.
And this is something where I think Team Wales, or formerly Luxury with Killer Queen, would have just been all out more coin flip, right? They just continue to coin flip when they're behind. And yes, sometimes the coin flips go their way, but most of the time it's not, and they're just going to dig their own graves. And now let's see, with B being the addition to the roster, how much better can they play? And this is not a if they lose, therefore they're terrible, because they're in such a difficult position. But we get to see how they play, and they're looking to take this Rift Herald, and maybe they are looking to coin flip more and more. Dia1 teleporting in, looking for a potential play. Slater making his way in, explosive cask lands onto 3, but doesn't deliver anyone for an engage for SBTC, and the Rift Herald practically secured now. Emperor, though, still looking for a potential play, and the Rift Herald stolen away. Team Wales, though, will be able to get one kill as Dia1 very nicely flashes out of Nagia's ultimate, so it is a trade of Rift Herald for kill.
Yeah, they would have actually preferred the Rift Herald because there was objective bounties already on that Rift Herald, so that would have been a nice chunk of global gold, and they will lose that mid tower because they just can't even 5v4 in this situation. It's too risky. Another kill over to Glory, so it's really all concentrated onto this mid lane, and we know late game Jace can absolutely carry team fights, especially Glory, one of the best chases from the mid lane position in our league. I was really questioning Team Wales playing this much for team fights anyway at this point in the game, but they did kind of do well. Nagia not pulling the trigger too early with the ultimate, just playing more defensively, but unfortunately they lose the objective. Now Nagia sees the opportunity to go on Dia1. Good flash from Dia1. So actually Team Wales playing it rather slowly, and that's exactly what we want to see.
And I would like to highlight as well, one of the reasons that fight didn't go particularly well for SBTC was the fact that Slater wasn't there. He pathed weirdly into the mid lane, so his only presence in that team fight was a single piercing arrow that I think landed onto Nagia, but that was it. So that was practically a 4v5 fight with SBTC being at numbers disadvantage.
This is where we expect Team Wales to outplay SBTC now on the lane assignments, on tempo resets and stuff like that. Killer Queen once again on the red buff. That is the only place on the map where Team Wales is winning this game, just permanently invading the enemy red buff. That's the third in a row Killer Queen is stolen, I believe. But on the other side, DNK is actually taking away all the top side jungle creeps from his counterpart in the jungle. And DNK is still ahead, both in CS and levels, actually. So all the invades, all the early aggression in the jungle haven't really done anything.
Explosive cask used by DNK, and SBTC are roaming their way up to this top lane, looking for a potential dive. They have the Chains of Corruption available from Slader, and Team Wells are going to be forced to back away as SBTC claim their first in a tower. But now, teleport flank, Nagia looking for that big ultimate. Who does he look for? He's forced to back away because SBTC are 5 and they are still stronger than the Whales.
Okay, slight opportunity here for Wales to just beeline towards Dragon and try to burst it down before SBTC can react, because they had to take the long way around. If they get the Dragon, that's 5 more minutes they can just use to scale, so that's a huge opportunity to get back into the game. We have seen Wales play from behind, play team fights well, around Nagia on that Malphite just about a week ago, so this is a huge opportunity. But Wales calling it off, going back towards top side, trying to trade, maybe set up a trade of Dragon for top tower, more global gold. So it's an okay call to make, but actually looking at the map positioning or the resets from SPDC, I feel like the Dragon would have been a better and bigger opportunity to strike.
And again, Team Wells, if they want to make a play, they have to dive Emperor, and we saw how badly that went for Team Wells before. Palette here as well, and forced to repel his Killer Queen now flashes away, but in goes Palette. He wants this spider. Nom nom nom. SBTC pick up their 7th kill.
Yeah, look at the other side of the map. That's a Dragon for free. Now, more than free, actually. Winning on both sides now. They invested time onto Dragon. They are also going to get bot side tower. They are going to get a counter kill on the dive. That was ill-advised from the Elise again. That's the Killer Queen of old, and this Elise pick looking worse and worse with every passing minute.
And I'm just wondering if this is a case of maybe Killer Queen / Team Well saying, yes, okay, we can get Vit to scale, but Killer Queen saying, I'm playing Elise, I can't scale. Maybe he feels desperation in the fact that he needs to do in the early stages of the game.
Most definitely feeling desperation, but this is something you need to be disciplined about. If you play an early game champion and you fail to make an impact in the early game and you're behind, this is not solo queue. This is not about you now. You're still playing a 5-man team. Try to play around your strong points of your composition. Okay, Vid is not strong right now, but he potentially could be strong later, right? So instead of just throwing away the game for no reason, playing egotistically, just try to set up your carries to shine later. And I mean, Elise, yeah, she's not a great champion late game, but she can still kind of do the odd stun here or there. She can pose a little bit of a threat onto the carries if she comes from a flank or something like that. So you're never gonna be completely useless in the game, even as Elise. So this is a really badly disciplined performance from Killer Queen. Just doubling down on his early game woes, and 0-2 doesn't look too bad, but he really has been the main factor for Team Wales losing this game so far.
And also, quick Elise stat, there have been 9 Elise games in the VCS this split. Only 3 of those games have been won. Killer Queen getting one of the wins, Guri getting another, and Drakthar with the final game win on this champion. As Dia1 finds an engage onto Killer Queen, bursts it down solo, forced to go up, which denies the dredge line and denies the unleashed power. But now B's just been left to the wall. Piercing arrow almost lands, which would have spelled B's demise. And in the end, SBTC, they don't get any kills, but they do win the fight of health bars, and now they're just going to turn towards the Baron Nashor.
Bit risky into the likes of Zeri, Jace, and Malphite. Let's see if they do the same as Wales last game. Of course, they're much, much farther ahead than Wales was at the same kind of situation, but they are, look at the HP bars. Baron hurts at this point in the game, especially after the buffs early on in the season or even pre-season. So it's a little harder to take now. It's not completely free like it was last year. And this will now give Wales an opportunity to have a go at this tower. Zeri and Jace, really good champions at pushing down towers. That's potential. They can't quite get the tower. But next push will be another objective bounty. So a little bit of a slip up from SPTC.
And SBTC thinking that they could get the Baron were very well played by the side of Team Wales, particularly Glory poking members out with those shock blasts, forcing SBTC to recall. And now a teleport in from Dia 1 as he completes his Archangel Staff. That will soon become a Seraph's Embrace. And Team Wales continuing to try to push DNK here on the flank. Explosive blocked by the unbreakable wall from B. And Team Wales now make their retreat.
Really nice play from B there to block. That would have been complete disaster. That would have hit Vit, who even flashed away to get away from the initial engagement. B's the saving grace there for his team, and Wales is holding on. It's a very thin threat, and they're about to fall off. But so far, they just barely are still in the game. They're very far behind, but with the dragon stalling to at least 2 more dragons, maybe, just maybe, they will have another opportunity at a slightly more even playing field around one of the fights. And Glory, once again, have to reiterate, is the one shining light for this team. He's now on 2 items. His poke actually mattered quite a bit in the last engagement, as he pointed out. So if he gets 1 more item, maybe a Sheraldus, and can really start to force the enemy team back, there's always a chance.
And yes, Team Wales are trying to hold on, but here's the thing about Wales, Yulwei. They don't have hands, so holding on to anything is very difficult when all they have are a couple of fins. And now SBTC look towards the Baron Nashor once more. Can Killer Queen find a hero play? Even if he dies to steal away the Baron, it would be 100% worth it. And SPTC back away from the Nashor once more, and their eyes are going to be firmly now on the Hextech Drake.
Yeah, Wales is doing a decent job actually getting to the objectives that SPTC is trying to force, but not committing to the fights, because SPTC is desperately trying to bait a fight here, right? That was an unbelievable flash from Glory.
Glory, very quick reactions. Palette landing the dredge line. The engage has been started by the side of SBTC, but Nagia and B are very tanky, just eating up the brunt of the damage from SBTC. What can a Glory do? Killer Queen now being
Kill that Queen.
But Killer Queen is already down, and the 3 carries, or the 2 carries, I should say, of Team Wales are now on the retreat with Nagia and Killer Queen dead, which means SBTC have a free path to the Nashor.
Yeah, that should really advance the game to a state where SPTC is in absolute control over the whole map. Now the Baron can be easily transitioned into a dragon and then break at least 1 inhibitor, as for some reason Vid is dying.
Emperor was going to follow him. Gets the kill anyway as Glory was trying to steal away the Drake. Team Wales desperately trying to find some objective, but Vic gets caught, and now the Drake will be secured by SBTC. A 10k goal lead for SBTC, and we're not even 25 minutes into this game.
Yeah, this is such an unbelievable flash, by the way. Glory is trying hard. We can't blame Glory if they lose the series. Don't start with this narrative of Glory choker and players. No.
We haven't seen game 4 yet. We haven't seen game 4 yet, your way.
Just already shielding against those kind of takes. This is just completely doomed. Have no idea how Killer Queen ended up in the middle of the enemy team. Nagia kind of has to go in. Killer Queen is dead again. Solo killed by the enemy jungler when he was perma-invading. This is probably the worst jungle game we have seen in a very long time in this league, where jungle is kind of our prime position, our one big pride. We take a lot of pride in our jungle position, and Killer Queen is running it down, like straight up having the worst game of his whole year in a very, very inopportune time. I can't even really think of a way that Team Wales can come back into the game. It has to come from a huge throw from SPTC.
Oh, did Killer Queen get a kill here onto Dia 1?
Oh, he did.
There he did. And he got the flash as well. And then... Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah, honestly, after seeing that is more acceptable then, because he actually got the solo kill on the enemy mid laner, and okay, how?
The flash was definitely not necessary. An 8k goal lead for SBTC, as SBTC will be picking up their second inner tower of the game. Drake up in less than 4 minutes, and it will be a Hextech Soul. Hextech Soul for the likes of Deer 1 and Slater will be absolutely huge.
Yeah, Hextech Soul, I think it's really nice also for Gragas, because he can just use his Q to zone, because you really don't want to step into that slow lightning through your whole team. So it's certainly one of those very high utility souls. It's just almost every situation you like to have it. so that's gonna be on the horizon. SPTC, honestly, really thinking about the last two games, they are about to win in under 30 minutes, back to back against Wales, after getting dominated in game number 1. Very short game times today, even though both of these teams tend to go to 33 minutes on average, at least in the league play, the league portion of the season, I should say. So this is really surprising how quickly these games have been decided in the mid game, and even more surprising to me that it's SBTC who play like this.
And SBTC continue this siege playing exceptionally well, and they've not really made any large mistakes this game. Yes, we saw Deer 1 getting caught out, but aside from that, they've played it slow, they've played it calculated, and haven't given Team Wales much room to pull themselves back into this game. A reset now, an inhibitor laid bare in favor of SBTC. And they're going to be looking at that Drake in just over 2 minutes, and then there'll be a Baron shortly after that. And Team Wales do not have a lot of time left if they want to scale and be able to match SBTC in a team fight.
Yes, you can say that again. There's no time left at all. 2 minutes, I guess, on the clock for the final fight for the Hextech Soul. If you lose that soul, yeah, it's all she wrote. I think it's completely over. I want to look at Slater, because I said at the start, his stats on the Varus are abysmal across his whole career. 8 games on Varus, 2 and 6. Only 1 game this year. Even the Varus has been very high priority everywhere, and also in the VCS. Lost that game as well, so I didn't expect too much from Slater in this game, but he has really stepped up to the plate. Double kill in the bot lane in a really risky matchup, where if you overchase, Zeri just runs you down. But now 4, 1, and 3, really hard to kill if you look at his itemization. Double defensive items, so even the Malphite can't really touch him. And this might be the last engagement. Hail Mary for Team Wales.
Nagia being engaged on Team Wales, desperately trying to maintain control of the river. And SBTC say, if you guys want control of the river, go for it. We'll just take control of your base. You bring up the champion stats of the Varus or Slater. Let's talk about full Nagia. Not lost a single game on the Malphite this season. It has been his best champion, and the Emperor has absolutely decimated Nagia in this game. An inhibitor now falls even more map pressure for SBTC, and now they'll start to walk towards the Drake.
Yeah, it's such a long way away now. Team Wales somehow has to walk to the Dragon without losing all their HP, and SBTC has every opportunity to look for SCC stack, to look for an engage. Look at DNK setting up the flank to get on top of the backline. Of course, there is still B's E to deny his ultimate, but there's the engage on Nagia.
And Nagia chunked down to about half health already. The Cassante of Emperor still doing rather well. Out comes the ultimate, the Glacial Fissure. Another hook from Palette looking towards Nagia, dashing away. Emperor now flashing forward, finds a flip. He's burger flipping them at McDonald's. Glory forced to flash away. Vit over the wall. Team Wales on the back foot, but what a play from the Emperor.
That's the biggest Cassante Q I've ever seen in my life. That hit 3 people. That was more impactful than Malphite in the whole game. Emperor with an absolutely stunning performance in game number 3. I thought today was Nagia's day to cement his position as number 1 top laner, but no. Emperor. The Emperor is here to play, and he solo killed Nagia. He played all the team fights amazingly, found the engages, and SBTC in slightly over 30 minutes to a 2-1 lead.
Really, really well played by SBTC. Emperor clearly the MVP from this game. What a performance on the Cassante. We know that his Cassante's been good all split long, but what a time to really show up once again. And you mentioned, Yolwe, how Emperor hasn't been worse this split. It's been the other top laners leveling up. Emperor just leveled up.
Yeah, and there's always this discussion about players in playoffs, and Nagia, especially this year. I mean, he was in the league last year as well, but he was more of this exciting new rookie player, and everyone was willing to give him a pass. Now, he came in and performed amazingly so far in this regular season, looked like the best top laner or one of the best top laners. Now it's playoffs times. This team just won second place. They are supposed to meet GUM and challenge GUM for the title. They're not supposed to lose to SPTC, especially after going 5-3 in games over the course of the year. So they were the favorites today. And Nagia, honestly, when I looked at all the stats, he had NPer's number in almost every game. There was like one game where NPer had better stats, but Nagia, for the most part, wiped the floor with the NPer in most of those games. And it's the complete reverse. And some of that is NPer, some of that is also Nagia. He has to get his nerves under control for the next two games if Wales wants to have a chance. Because botlane is not going to win. Vid against Slater is not going to go Vid's way in more than 50% of games. So it has to come from somewhere. Lurie is putting in work, but the top side is fumbling.
Before we throw it to a break, can you remind me, Yolway, did SBTC make it into playoffs last year? Because I don't think they did. It was GAM, Secret, Saigon
Spring.
Buffalo.
They made it to playoffs only once so far.
Okay.
They were fourth place in spring, and they kind of just flunked out instantly. So this is really the first time in the history where they have a realistic playoffs run ahead of them, and they are hyped. Of course, they've been hyped all the time, and maybe now is actually SPTC's time. They weren't able to secure second place, ended up third, but tied for second after regular season. Best ever score for this organization. And they were built to challenge GUM, so maybe it's actually on them and not on Wales.
The point that I wanted to go with this is that for Nagia and Emperor, at least for Nagia, it's his first time in playoffs. For Emperor, his second time in playoffs. So maybe the nerves getting to Nagia. However, we are going to be heading into a short break. And when we return, our analyst desk will be breaking down Game 3 and taking us into Game 4. Don't go anywhere. SBTC on the verge of making it into the upper bracket finals.
Away.
right now it's KDA. I'ma gonna spin a blaze 소리처럼 내 이름 잊지 못하게 loud 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 I could take it to the top 절대 멈추지 못해 내가 끝내주는 bag yeah 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 And when I start to talk that oh you know how to react I'm a picture perfect face with that wild in my veins you can hear it in my glow 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 So keep your eyes on me now 무엇을 보든 좋아할 거야 닿을 수 없는
Welcome back, everybody, and we now stand at match point. and possibly the final game of our first round of playoffs. It was not a great performance. Clockwork, I'm going to go straight to you. Just give me your reaction.
Okay, so my reaction is depression at the moment. This Mabi before the series said that it was going to be a 3-2 because one game it was going to be a run by Killer Queen and another one was going to be lost in draft, and this game was both of them at the same time. So yeah, I mean, Killer Queen did not play a good game. That's all I'm going to say. I just want to focus a bit on DNK. I want to praise him because, yeah, of course, Killer Queen made it easier, but his cask and his Gragas presence were all over the map, and he was very clutch in a lot of moments. SBDC is just looking cleaner and cleaner as the series goes on, and I'm struggling to see now this game 4. Team Wales, the Rock didn't work, the Spider didn't work. They need to find something that puts the ball back onto their side of the field.
I just want to jump in because I actually think this is something we talked about in draft, was the Elise was just isolated because they couldn't get any lane that actually worked with it. They picked the Elise very, very early, but then just didn't pick anything that really goes with it. And then they got forced into this late game bot lane. I feel like it's just, you need to not do that. If you're going to pick this Elise, you need to pick an aggressive bot lane early. What do you think, Bobby?
Yeah, I mean, they went for the Braum, which is a slam dunk in terms of the 2v2, 100%, but yeah, the Elise just sort of had to rely on herself, and that became very hard. You also didn't have great targets to work with. Your best angle would have actually been onto the Syndra, perhaps, but even then, Syndra's kind of a real pain with that scan of the week. So the Elise just was not relevant at all, and I mean, it might have been better to just pick a Leona and then just put to pair up with her. But in the end, I don't think it wasn't as much the Elise in a lot of it. Like the Elise wasn't in a great spot to begin with, and then Killer Queen decided to do a thing, make decisions. He certainly came out and was present on the game League of Legends in Vietnam tonight.
That's definitely one way to put it.
That's the nicest you're going to get out of me regarding that goddamn game.
Clockwork, what do you think? How do Wales get back into the next one?
Okay. Number one, stop banning Tristana. It was good as long as they focused on pinching Slater's champion pool. But they need now to address Emperor, because regardless of all the Elise talk, Emperor is getting solo kills after solo kills in lane. Nagia, we've praised him for his weak side and the ability to weather the storm even when there's a lot of focus on his lane by the opponents. But Emperor is just not allowing him to. So you need to address this top lane in some way. I really want, again, Glory is playing this series with his heart on his hands, and I want to see him take like more responsibility. Pick him something that can roam and that can, go to either side lanes and try to, straighten them a bit. The R is an option. The Talia is an option. Pick Tristana yourself. We know that he can play it. And there's like a lot of options that he can take, more of a responsibility in roaming and assisting lanes. Because Killer Queen at the moment is not doing that. And yeah, you need someone to make it work.
I think I definitely agree that Glory needs to step up. Not necessarily that he's had a terrible series. I don't think he's been the issue in any game, but he needs to be the carry. They need to put him on a carry, and they need to get him into the game. Going into draft, and Wales, come on, we need to innovate with these bans.
Why are we banning the Wukong? Why are we banning the Wukong at all? Like, sure, maybe it goes, you're kind of okay taking that. I don't see the point in the Wukong ban. Like, they've been banning it as a response to this Viego ban, but like, are you really that bothered with picking up a Sejuani into a Wukong matchup? No, you can use that as ban the Syndra even. I think the Syndra has been a big part of their success of SBTC success in the last 2 games. Now they're going to go for the Jinx. This is what I asked for instead of the Zeri in that last game, because you can actually sort of contest a little bit in the earlier moments before 6. And now this is a better start to a draft, but I mean, Varus, Slater had a great game on it. GNK going to the Maokai would be interesting. It might slow down his early impact a little bit, but it's still a menace in late game situations.
Okay, so I super agree with Mabi on this. Park, Killer Queen on the Sejuani prison, like the Yankos of the good old times, so he can minimize the damage that he deals to his own team, and he still has good options to, put crowd control and be relevant in team fights. Now, I expect something like a mid laner, right? Dia is going to blind pick something, probably. So there's another good angle for Glory to pick some really good counter pick, and he has the world. This is Hoister, basically. There's no mid lane champion bans other than Tristana. I think he goes for the Cassiopeia, which is... Oh, there's the Jax open. We're forgetting that SBTC didn't ban it, so even Nagia has a lot of options. This is starting to shape up like a much more comfortable draft for Wales.
Yeah, they're definitely going for comfort, and I think locking in a nice pick for Nagia right now, something for comfort, and now just ban out responses from Ember. Finally, this is going to be what they want to give Nagia a comfortable matchup, because he has been struggling a lot, especially that last game. He was just out of sorts in his decision making that entire game. So, I'm pretty comfortable. I think Glory has a deep enough pool to put into this Rise pick. He's just going to take away the Cassiopeia as one of the big ones, but Silas, Talia, he's going to be probably fine to pick up one of those. I imagine Silas would be bad, because you don't want to give over that Maokai ult, but...
However, I would have preferred, of course, there's more bans coming, so SBTC might have taken the Jax off, but I would have preferred mid lane counter pick, because now what are you going to pick on Wales? Like, you're probably going to waste a counter pick, because you already know their mid laner, and now they're going to pick whatever top laner fits them into Jax. So maybe not optimal, but still really good. The Malphite is banned, and now SBTC, they still have a support and top lane to pick. The Veigar. This might be interesting, because it adds a lot of zone control. Thank you. And yesterday, Yado, even in a losing series, he showed that Veigar can keep a whole game up by himself. That's what Glory was doing earlier.
Trying to, it might be a little bit easier on the Veigar, but we're going to have to see skill matchup looking to come in for Enper, and I would be leaning towards giving him the edge, but wants to play it as safe as possible with the Cassante. Play it a little bit safer at least, and now, and Paulette has to pick, might just be another Nautilus angle coming out. It's a good all-rounder, and then what does B go for? The support Brom, once again, wouldn't be that bad, but could also go into a Renata. Could look for a little bit more aggression himself with a Thresh or something similar. The Lulu locks out the Braum, so probably a Renata for me.
Renata is a good option. There's also Nautilus angle. Thresh is my favorite. I know that Nautilus is very popular in VCS, but they seem to have locked in the Chain Warden. And overall, this is a much safer composition from Wales. There's much less coin flip and a lot more crowd control, which I value a lot. And there's also scaling. Of course, we praised a lot Wales mid game, but in these compositions that they need to have some elements that in the late game, if something goes wrong in the mid game, as it happened in game 2 and 3, they need to have some insurance for the late game, and now they have it.
Yeah, it's an interesting set of champions for both teams here. Honestly, Emperor moving over to the tank after being so dominant on carries in the last couple is a really interesting adaptation. I like it. Don't get me wrong. I think it's a good adaptation. But I'm going to start with you, Marby. What do we think of these drafts, and who is coming out on top?
I mean, I think Emperor is definitely feeling himself on the Cassante after that last performance, but I do like what Team Wales has put together in terms of draft, but I'm still a little bit concerned about their mental state, especially on Nagia and Killer Queen. Maybe this Jax and Sejuani will turn it around a little bit more, a little bit safer, a little bit more ordinary for them this time, and that'll bring it home. But I would give the edge to SBTC just from what we've been watching.
Clockwork?
I see that Mabi is cautiously optimistic, but I'm actually going for it. We're going to game 5. Wales are gonna splash this one.
Clockwork calls the Silver Scrapes, but to call the game, I hand it over to two people who I would not want anyone else to be. Yulwei, Milky, take it away.
Thank you very much, Carrix, Marby and Clockwork. We're getting ready then. Oh, I say we're getting ready. We're already heading on in to Game 4, SBTC against Team Wales. And now the tension just rises up that little bit more, Yulwei. A potential final game. SBTC might be locking in themselves a spot in the upper bracket finals against GARM next weekend.
What are we doing over here? Wait.
We're dancing.
Why did he get one gold there?
Wait, who got a gold?
Nagia just got +1 gold. Why? Huh?
What?
That was so confusing. They just stared at each other and Nagia earned some gold. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Well, because they were dancing and Nagia won the dance wars, so Nagia got a gold for it. I think that's fair.
Yeah. Well, Nagia back on Jax. He's been having a really rough series. First playoffs for him, and he's not living up to the hype that especially I put him after that amazing regular season. Nagia needs to get back to his form from last week, because Emper had his number last game, but he's now on the Jax, and Jax Nagia has been a pairing that's almost like the old coated Jax. So I think if anything, it's this champion that's going to bring him back.
Well, we thought the Malphite would be good fit, now being engaged on a lot of damage, forced to flash away, and now B left in a 1v2, just going to take a lot of damage from both Slader and Palette, who once again come out on top against the Team Wales bottom lane duo.
Yeah, and we're back with Vit Jinx, which I really like to see, but this lane phase is going to be rough, because it's Lulu into Thresh. That's always going to be a very, very hard matchup for the Thresh to play. And then also Varus is going to be much stronger than Jinx, especially in the early passages of the laning phase. So I feel like Team Wales' bot lane is firmly on the back foot now, which can also impact how the rest of the team plays, and we might be back to some of the first game performance where they played very slowly, very conservatively, but instead it's Killer Queen with the first gank at top lane. Good flash from Emper to get away from the stun.
No Counter-Strike will land. Killer Queen can. A flash engage, and in he goes with the Arctic Assault. Can they get the CC? Yes, they can. And Killer Queen bounces back from game 3.
Just in 3 minutes, Killer Queen has already played a better game than in game number 3. But to be fair, it wasn't hard, but really good start on a more team-oriented champion. We saw the Sejuani. There was a lot of talk about Sejuani against Wukong, and if Killer Queen can make the Sejuani work, that's going to be a whole nother consideration for the next draft, for game number 5 potentially. But bringing Nagia ahead is exactly what you want to see after his struggles in game number 3, I should say.
So, Yulwei, fun factoid time. Sejuani, Killer Queen, how many games, how many wins?
I mean, I could check, but
You could check, but that defeat the purpose of the game.
I think, if I remember correctly, it's 4 maybe? 4 or 7. One of the two had 4, I believe. So I'll say 4, and he won 3 games.
He's had 2 games of Sejuani, both this split and over his entire career, and he has never won a game on the champion.
Oh, okay. But it's a new stage. It's playoffs again. He has been in playoffs once before. Very different jungle meta back then. The ego time. And maybe it's his time to shine on the tank this time around. We have to say this, Sejuani against Maokai is a matchup we've seen quite a bit of, especially last week in that tiebreaker. And most of the time, the Sejuani actually got to a great early start, like she did right in this game. And then Maokai was much, much more impactful in the team fights. So if we go by the evidence we saw last week, when these two teams played against each other, and Killer Queen was actually on the Maokai side of things, the Maokai is kind of gonna, I don't want to say outscale, but be a little bit better in team fights compared to the Sejuani.
We'll see whether that prophecy comes through. Also, a quick shout out to Brackish Brit, because he has told us exactly how Nagia got that one goal. Apparently, Jax has a mini game where he can go fishing in the river and then he gets a goal from that. So apparently, yeah, that's if Nagia wins this lane, you know why. Fishing mini game broken.
Yep. That's just unfair. Like, he just got a gold, and Enpa stared at him. It was like, I thought we were just dancing, but you were fishing on the side? However, I'm not entirely sure how Jax managed to do that, but just multitasker over in the top lane. Now, Nagia, is he fancying a 1v2? No, he just wants to interrupt Enpa's back, and that's pretty good from Nagia. Now, this pink ward could be a bit of a bait, but I like Nagia chasing for Enpa, because his lane is frozen right outside his turret range, I believe, so he has a free reset as well. And this top lane, while he is pretty far behind in CS, he should be able to catch up in no time.
And in the end, Empa doesn't actually back, and now Killer Queen is making up as Empa gone too far forward, does not have a flash available, can't get out of the counter-strike this time, and this time the kill's given over to Nagia.
Oh, I can't even blame Enpa for anything there. That was such an elaborate bait from the side of Nagia. What an amazing play. That was some of the best theater performance, I guess, or like play, putting on a play from a pro player I've seen in a very long while. He just acted as if he was recalling, as if he was just chasing to get the better recall, and just walked back through the bushes out of nowhere. Enpa had absolutely no idea what was happening to him, and now this Jax with a kill and an assist is off to an amazing start.
What did I tell you, Yulwei? Killer Queen's no longer a psychopath, he's a sociopath. And the big brain plays coming through from Killer Queen and Nagia. 2 deaths onto Empa in the opening 7 minutes. Drake, though, has been secured by DNK. Killer Queen a little bit late to the party, forces DNK to flash over the wall. But Team Wells will be happy with their start to this game nonetheless.
That could have almost been disastrous. If they lose the dragon there, they lose everything across the whole map, because they kind of disengaged a bit too early. If the dragon came down to a flip, unfortunately Killer Queen not quite able to land the smite there. I'm not sure if he had the smite available. Looking at his cooldown, probably not. So a little fortuitous for the side of SPTC that they got away with that sloppy macro play. In the end, they pick up the first dragon, but top lane is a little bit of an issue this time around for the side of SPTC.
And I want to take this opportunity, this little lull state, to talk a little bit about maybe mental, maybe about kind of preparation, pressure playing in playoffs, particularly for a few players. Looking towards Nagia, his first ever playoffs. You look towards the likes of Empa, Killer Queen, their second ever playoffs. And there is a big difference between your first time playing at a stage versus your second time, because there's a little bit less pressure. And I even think about, you know, when you're playing in solo queue, the first time you make it into promos for reaching gold or platinum, whatever it is, there's so much more pressure on you the first time. And then the second time you do it, it's like, this is easy. I've been here before.
Yeah, of course. It's always a new environment, a new stage, even though they play on the same exact seats, and it shouldn't be all that different. They played this team last week. It's a best of 5. It's not for their lives, of course, because we have double elimination, but the chance to play against GAM and not have to go down and play against Cerberus tomorrow is such a huge difference. It's a brutal schedule, especially for the losing teams, because they have to face off against each other tomorrow again. So, yeah, this is a very important series, but here we have one of the crucial moments of the game, Rift Herald skirmish.
We've seen big fights over Rift Herald. DNK will throw out the Nature's Grasp, and it will just force Team Wales to back away. So, unlike what we saw in Game 1 and Game 2, this time SBTC getting the first Drake and the first Rift Herald as well.
Yeah, good start in terms of objectives, and it's so confusing to see this happening because it's really Team Wales. They usually go for the early Rift Herald, 70% Rift Herald percentage, by far the highest. Oh, Slater 1 HP!
Slater baited that beautiful flash out of the engage. He knew DNK was coming, and he says thank you very much for the kill.
Nagia had flash too. He could have tried to flash after him. But I think the
Slater buffered the Chains of Corruption, so he actually threw out the ult and predicted Nagia's jump.
Oh, that's beautiful. Let's see this again. Nagia is so scary with the ultimate activation. And he does see DNK actually, but thinks he has the ultimate, has the damage to at least trade 1-for-1. Nagia overstepping, getting an early advantage, and he wants to, of course, stand up for his team. He knows he kind of cost his team a few advantages in the last few games and let them down. Now he wants to make up for it, and he kind of overcompensates. Another thing that points towards jitters and a little bit of a rookie mentality, so hopefully Nagia can recover from this one.
Try to think back to the previous playoffs for Killer Queen and Glory, back where they were playing for Luxury in the 2021 Winter Playoffs. I believe they played against Burst the Sky, or they lost their first round of the playoffs, then beat Burst the Sky in the third place playoffs game. So Killer Queen and Glory have seen some success at playoffs.
Remember that Glory and Killer Queen didn't play together back then, right?
Oh yeah, wait, Glory was on Burst
against. Yeah, Glory was on Burst the Sky, so.
It was Blazes who was mid lane, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They teamed up together because both of them were kind of the star players of their teams, and now they are on this really hyped squad together. Killer Queen, his favorite spot on the map, enemy red buff, he's here again.
Very quick trade onto DNK. He can't quite stack up the passive.
Risky.
Under tower goes Emperor. Nagia able to sidestep the Entofo strikes. Can't sidestep that one. And Nagia is going to be forced to back away as a Super Mega Death Rocket from downtown, but not enough damage to pose any real threat to Emperor.
And I feel like that's once again pointing towards Nagia being not quite as confident as he was a few weeks ago, or even just last week in the regular season, because I do think there was an opportunity to kill him there under tower. With the tower shot, with Jax having a lot of very upfront burst damage, it's not easy for Emperor in that situation to sustain using all his ultimate, what's it called, like lifesteal. So I feel like there was actually maybe lethal for Nagia, but he didn't go for it. He just played it safe and didn't go for the solo kill. That gives SPTC the opportunity to strike on the other side of the map, and easy 2 platings into the pockets of Slater and DNK.
And Slater's going to be very far ahead. He's got a 10 CS lead, has a couple of her plates as well. And, I mean, it's not going to be a huge amount of goal, but the goal between the two teams about 500 as Engage comes through from Killer Queen. And Vit is just free-firing on the Jinx, now excited, looking towards the DNK. The Permafrost comes through, but DNK just about able to flash over the wall in time.
Ooh, the double kill would have been huge. Oh, he gets it! There it goes.
From downtown.
I'm feeling game number 5. This is very reminiscent of that first performance. Vit off to a great start, assisted by his jungler and support, and now he's gonna be accelerated. He's gonna be a strong Jinx for the team fights. They will also hold the Dragon Snowball, getting 1 back for the team. And now look at the gold lead. Team Wales has found another breath of fresh air, I guess.
Oh, I thought it was going to be a death sentence straight onto the Flame Chompers, but good cleanse. And despite what was just trying to think if there was any way they could have got the kill onto DNK earlier, and I don't really think they could have. I don't think Vit had a flash to get over the wall and chase, but lands Super Mega Death Rocket nonetheless.
Boink. It looks so funny in slow motion, the way it moves across the map. But yeah, actually, Slater played it as well as he could. He dodged almost everything there, but just a bit too much pressure, a little too much CC between those champions. B landing the hook into Killer Queen, collapsing instantly. And this 2-0 Jinx, all eyes on Vit now. He carried game number 1 in team fights. Can he do it again and bring his team to game number 5?
Emperor, I think dashing in, trying to get a trade onto Nagia, has a lot less health than Nagia, but still more than happy to take these trades against the Jackson Emperor. We've seen over the course of this split, right, your way, he's so proficient on the Cassante, and even if it doesn't have the highest of win rates, would probably say he's the best Cassante in the league, maybe Kiaya ahead of him.
I think Nagia is better, personally, but
Ooh, okay.
That's regular season. But of course, all these traits, I feel like Nagia is not playing these traits as he would if this was just a regular season game, because that Jax did not look like he could lose the traits, especially with the Sheen already. Okay, he doesn't have the Mythic, but still, it feels like Nagia is playing super scared now in lane, which, I mean, the Jax is gonna scale, but after that much early investment and a kill early on the Jax with such a creative way to set it up, here's a bit of a scary situation for Dia1. He does dodge on.
Dia1 has flash, decides against using it, just plays it really well with a phase rush movement speed.
Yeah, really. This time he didn't just run into the corners of the sun there, the edges of Glorious E. Instead, he just walked around, chilled, and then walked back to his tower, because Veigar can't really deal all that much damage in one go. He needs a little bit more time to scale to really pose a big threat to this Ryze. And the Ryze is something we haven't talked about at all. He's actually 3-0 on this year. Dia1 very successful on the Ryze. He used to be a really good champion back in the day for him too. But in this game, very quiet performance. Just consigned to mid lane, not able to make roams and dives happen. So just instinctively, I'd say not the greatest Ryze early game, because you kind of want to use the ultimate to make some fancy plays happen. And especially if you compare Ryze to Veigar, if both are just staying in lane, I think Veigar is probably happier about that than Ryze.
Yeah, a lot of scaling for the Veigar, and I think it's 16 games in total Dia1 has on the Ryze over the course of his career, and sitting at a perfect 50% win rate on the champion. Now, I've got a fun factoid here for you, Yulwei, which is something that I came across while playing a little bit of Ranked a week ago. Did you know that on Thresh, you can Q flash?
No, I didn't actually know that. No.
So, you can't. What happens is, and I swear this is what happened when I played the game, I pressed Q and flash, but I did it the wrong way around because I wanted to flash Q. I did the flash just after I pressed Q. Thresh then Q'd and proceeded to flash after throughout the Q animation, which I've never seen that interaction before. I didn't realize you could buffer a flash.
There are a few abilities who will interact like that, where you can sort of flash, but the ability is not impacted. I believe the same is true for, is it Lux Ultimate? I don't want to just make allegations, but there are a few abilities that work.
Q flash. So
Pike Q, for example, it works the same way. You can't actually Q flash Pike, but you can Q and flash on Pike, but you can't redirect the Q from Pike over minions or something. It's just gonna connect to the minion. So it's probably all the grabs are gonna work like that, apart from Blitzcrank, whose grab, of course, is much faster.
Yeah. Well, interesting factoid over. The game state, 17 minutes in, a 1,000 goal lead for the side of Team Wales. SBTC looking to bring that goal deficit down as they are diving onto Nagia in the top lane, but Nagia takes a fair chunk of damage, and actually that's not Emperor in the top lane, that is Dia1 now flashing forward as Palet and Slater make their way to the top lane. Glory as well teleporting in to provide some assistance for his top lane.
Ooh, the teleport can really hurt them on the long run, because now they can't. They could have pushed mid lane much. Oh, they are going to invest the other teleport to get back into position to push mid lane. Actually, I don't hate this. It's a lot committed for one tower, but this should snowball into the Dragon 2, and then you really have a huge advantage. Big CC chain!
And when Emperor is CC'd on the Cassante, there is not much he can do to find the outplay. Great death sentence from B. And Rift Herald will charge forward once more. Oh, the death sentence almost lands. Super Mega Death Rocket, that's the kill. And excited is Vit, the rocket will fly. And Team Wales will get a second of the fight. And down goes D&K for the third of the fight.
They will not go quietly into the night in Vietnam. They want a fifth game. They're so much more confident, so much more aggressive and assertive from the side of Wales, just going for the dives, and that combination of Sejuani Veigar looks so strong, and even adding the Thresh displacement into the Veigar cage as well. Look at this. They grab him in, and then he ends up stunned right as the CC from the death sentence ends, because there's the Veigar cage. So perfect chaining of CC, not even fully intended, just how the spells work together. And how do you ever get away from this one? There's also the cleanse was used in the last engagement, so Slater dies, double auto attack, ooh, flash auto from Vid. Really nice display of skill and so decisive. That's exactly what we wanted to see. Wales did not get tilted from the last game. They're here to fight.
Wales now with 2 Drakes to SBTC's 1 Mountain Rift, which is going to be very nice for the likes of Killer Queen, maybe for B and Nagia as well. And Jinx 3-0-2. Once again, Vic going for this Runan's Hurricane build, just like we saw in game 1, not going straight for an Infinity Edge or a Phantom Dancer. Wants to be able to throw out as many rockets in a team fight as possible.
Yeah, if you look at the enemy team, a lot of melee or short-range champions, so it makes a lot of sense. And in general, it's a very good item on the Jinx anyway. A lot of people just go with no matter what the opponent's team is comprised of. So it makes a lot of sense here. Vid with a very good performance, 3-0. He was supposed to be the weak point of Wales, and some of the games, especially the last game, they got stomped in bot lane. But when he's put on Jinx on those safe hyper carries, he can provide the teamfight damage. Maybe he's not your Shogun who's going to dominate lane together with his support, but you don't need him to do that. He's not on this team to do that. You have Lurray to win lane, you have Nagia to win lane. If he can just provide the late game insurance of a good ADC in team fights, that's all you can ever hope for.
So, game 5. Jinx gets banned. What does Vit then play? What is a scaling big ADC that Vit can play?
I think we're going to let the analysts muse about that one, because they want to have something to think about too. Because the game is not yet over. Yes, it's a big advantage for Wales, and they've looked like the better team. But Wales has also had the odd overstep here or there, especially in this series. In game number 2, their macro kind of collapsed when it came to the mid game. Think about the Baron call. So it's not over yet.
It's not over until the fat lady sings, and Vit is not quite fat enough just yet on this Jinx. 7 kills to 1 and a 3k goal lead for the side of Team Wales. There is a Baron, might be causing a bit of PTSD for Killer Queen and the rest of the Wales crew, but they aren't going to look to it just yet. 2.5 minutes until the next Drake, which will be Soul Point for Team Wales. Engage coming through from DNK, but Killer Queen has a very nice lantern that he can take out to safety, but he's just making sure he wanted to get Slater's ultimate out. That's all that Killer Queen was doing there.
God, I think I would hate playing with this player. My God, he's cutting it close. He is.
It's like playing with me, Yulway, isn't it?
Walking on the edges. That lantern was 1 millisecond away from despawning. Then Killer Queen is in a really odd position there. But he gets
calculated, Yulway. Calculated.
Yeah, sure. He just counted the lantern on the ground. He, with the early warm-ups, he gets back to full HP, and he engages right on Slater.
Glacial Prison will not land, and Killer Queen cannot take the lantern out to safety. From the side comes DNK, finds the engage, and that's a shutdown picked up by Dia 1. But Vit is free firing. This Jinx is big. This Jinx is excited. Looking for more. Emperor into the backline. It's a double kill for the Rise, but Vic cannot kite back from the Emperor. A shutdown for the SBTC top laner, and SBTC want more. A double kill. Emperor flashes out of the tower range, but into the Vega cage goes both Emperor and Deal 1, but they're still alive. How is that fair gameplay? Glory flashes forward. He can't find an avenue to find a kill. Slater walks right through the event horizon and pierces Glory and pierces Team Wales' hope of victory.
Both of these teams playing lights out League of Legends. What happened in that big break? They got revitalized by their snacks in between or something. What amazing play back-to-back. Killer Queen. This is the problem when you build Warmogs. Yes, you have a lot of HP. Yes, you're good against poke, but you're not very tanky, especially not against high DPS champions like Rice. He's just cutting through that Sejuani in no time whatsoever, and it's a bit too scattered from the side of Wales. They can't really focus their attention, especially with Emperor diving onto all of them and buying so much time, but then splitting the fight up again. Perfect K'Sante play. So nice how he utilizes both forms of K'Sante, the full tank, just to buy time and be a frontline, and then once he recognizes, okay, I can actually go to the side and play a little bit of 1v1, a little bit of Vayne play style, and just go for the skirmishes.
Oh, we've got to find out Baron. There's more fighting happening. The box has been dropped down. I don't know what's going on, but I know that SBTC are winning the fight. They'll take the Baron as well. Is this game 2 all over again? And for a second, I thought Vit with a zap might be able to recreate Slater's performance. but SBTC, over the course of a few minutes, have overturned a 2k gold deficit and are now 2,000 gold ahead.
Wales did not watch our broadcast. Wales, for the next time, for tomorrow, just put someone into the Twitch chat here. We gave you all you needed to know. Don't throw at Baron. It had happened again into Emperor. You can't do this into Maokai and Kassanti. Look at them. They another 3-man knockback for Kassanti. 2 in back-to-back games. That's not supposed to happen. This is not Gragas Barrel. This is not an ability that's supposed to hit 3 people. And what a performance. What a turnaround from SBTC. I think you jinxed them with talk about Game 5 too early.
Yeah, well, in that case, I'll do them a favor. There is no way this is going to Game 5. SBTC have cleaned this game up. And what a performance it has been from Emperor. Team Wells tried to shut him out of lane, but they cannot shut him out of the game. He's finding these incredible plays out of absolutely nothing.
Oh yeah, Amper is playing out of his mind on this Kassanti. He got baited early on in the lane, lost his life, almost couldn't have done anything differently there. That was just a genius play from the side of Nagia, set up to perfection. And ever since, he has dominated lane, he has pushed Nagia back, even in CS, and his teamfight impact is not even comparable. You have Nagia who's barely doing anything, and then Amper dominating front to back, both playing the tank and the bruiser better than Nagia.
Right, try not to get carried away challenge in effect. Vit, still 3 items. Still very, very big on this Jinx. And if Team Wells can find a decent setup for a fight where Vit is able to get a kill, find that first kill, get excited, Team Wells are still very, very scary to deal with.
Yeah, he has to be on his best behavior though, because this is actually one of those comps that reminds, oh, Nagia is going in, that is risky.
Again, the Glacial Prison misses from Killer Queen. Killer Queen just gets burnt down, as you mentioned. That Warmog's armor does not provide tankiness. It just allows small skirmishes. And Team Wells lose yet another member. They lose yet another tower.
Try not to engage challenge, also absolutely impossible for all VCS teams but GAM. But now it's SPTC on the engage train, and maybe they found Emperor.
Really nice death sentence. The Wild Growth comes through, but that is a shutdown for Vit. And what can Vit do here? There is no tower to protect him to aggress any further. But a teleport flank from Nagia flashes forward. 2 members lock down. The event horizon is beautiful from Glory. It's a shutdown for Team Wales, and SBTC are forced to run with their tail between their legs.
And this game is just back-to-back. Full commitment, absolutely unleashed on both sides, just insta-flash commitments, just summoner spells, they need to be on cooldown. If a summoner spell is not on cooldown, you have done something wrong in the last fight, apparently. And Team Wales strike back yet again. Vit, yes, he is a threat, but this one was Nagia, redeeming himself after getting thoroughly outperformed, but then also Glory finding that amazing cage angle, just the perfect way to stun both of his target with a flash E. Yeah, there's still a lot of fight left in both of these teams.
You just had to go and praise Nagia, didn't you, your way? He gets picked off a camera, and a kill goes away of SBTC. Baron in 2 minutes, Drake in 2 minutes, both teams on 2 Drakes, less than 1,000 goals separating them. What a game we have. It's skirmishy, it's feisty, it's spicy, it's everything we could possibly want.
Ooh, Killer Queen gets over the wall, but I think he's
Killer
fine.
Queen, that is one way to pull DNK into the frying pan, and fry DNK is a little bit of tree for supper.
Nice little kill. Another one going over to Vit. Oh, now Emperor needs to be careful, but he's so tanky.
B, can you calm down with these death sentences? They are absolutely ridiculous, but then Emperor just pops right off, pulls Killer Queen out of the fight, and SBTC find themselves with another kill.
Look at DR1 dancing on the edges of that cage on a low-range champion like Rice. He's on top of his mechanics too. What a movement there from the side of DR1 Emperor.
Oh,
big
Nagia
shield.
tries to go in, but the Wild Growth, it keeps Emperor alive. Can't get to the lantern. Good death sentence onto DR1, but the Rise is just too tanky. And SBTC and Team Wales dancing on the brink of death, but Emperor just has this death dance played out beautifully.
And we're doing it all here. It's crazy calls, it's back and forth, it's movement diff, it's hand diff, everything happening in one game, and it's still so close. Yes, SBTC are in a better position, but as you pointed out earlier, there's still a Jinx on 3.5 items, close to 4 items now. There's still a Veigar infinitely scaling into territory where you can maybe even one-shot someone like Dia1. But it's not the easiest game to play for them either, as there's so much individual CC and playmaking on all the champions of SPTC. They might be lower ranged, but they all have CC, they all have dive, they all have some tools to reposition themselves, so both Vit and Glory need to be on their absolute best behavior to not die instantly to some of these attacks.
That Emperor, the all-out and Topho strike to pull Killer Queen out of the range, and then this. If Nagia had just gone in a bit earlier, maybe they could have got a kill. But in the end, it was another kill for the side of SBTC. Honestly, you'll wait. I can't predict which way this game is going. I want to say SBTC, but it's just so crazy. You could see any fight going any way, and who knows? Maybe if Killer Queen can land some of his ultimates, they can win some more fights.
So I define it like this. Team Wales composition is easier to play, but SPTC is playing better right now. Killer Queen misses yet another ultimate.
Someone keep a counter on one side of the screen. Be engaged on forced to flash away, not tanky enough on the Thresh. And Emperor flashes forward with a killer instinct in his eyes.
The Emperor is not letting them have a chance. And that is such a nice play. Oh, a little bit misplaced, but still on top of the Baron. Much faster than the enemy team can react. And this Baron is going down. That's Rice. Yeah, that's Baron gone.
I was going to say, Killer Queen, it's your time to step up, but he's going to get nowhere close to the Baron. Asher, Emperor locked down in the event horizon. Can't aggress any further. We also missed off-screen SBTC picking up their third Drake of the game onto Mountain Soul Point. And we said that Team Wales were able to, mentally bounce back from Game 3. I think right now they're going to have to do some mental gymnastics to pull themselves back into this game, because it felt like this game was in their control and it has just been slowly slipping away from them. Vit now on 4 items. Infinity Edge completed. He surely has to be the win condition for Team Wales.
So the thing is, in this game, you look at the composition for Team Wales and you think, wow, their late game power is insane. And yes, that's true. Their late game team fighting can be absolutely incredible with these champions. But it is not an easy game to play team fights in, because you have to be insanely crisp and very, very decisive in your target calling. Not something you talk about very often. But in this game, there are so many tools in the enemy team. They have so many weird little things on their champions, like the Twisted Advance being invulnerable. Then also Emperor repositioning across multiple angles in one fight. We have Dia1 dancing around the edges and then having so much movement speed, but also being so tanky. And the Varus is just shooting from afar. So I think Team Wales' composition should win teamfights if played to perfection, but it's not easy to do. You need to be so crisp on your target calling.
One good thing that Team Wales have is they've got really good wave clear, which makes it a bit harder for SBTC to siege, just because Fit, again, picked up that Runelance Hurricane, which is going to come in so big to getting rid of these waves that SBTC are going to throw towards the Team Wales inhibitor towers. Nagia is still very weak, so it has a lot of scaling potential. Has picked up I think it's the half-bound axe as he looks for his third item, and maybe he can be a menace in the side lane. Nature's Grasp now being used. SBTC looking for the play on to Killer Queen. Polymorph, but down goes the inhibitor tower. Event Horizon drop down. Emperor taking a lot of damage as SBTC just unload as much damage as they can onto the inhibitor. Won't be able to do it though. What can Killer Queen do? Can he find an engaged death sentence narrowly wide as Dia1 just dances around the skill shots of Team Wales?
Milky. We need to comment on that. That was a 1.2k crit across the whole team from Dia1. If this Rice is allowed to attack, you will die very quickly. Your whole team will evaporate. Yes, he's low range, and maybe you can lock him down with his CC, or the enemy team just engages.
Glacial Prism lands, and that's going to be 1 kill for Team Wales. Eyes on Vit. What can he do on this Jinx? The rockets are flying. He's looking for one more. Killer Queen jumping forward. Glory locked down and can't follow up on the play. Just the 1 kill for Team Wales. They keep their bottom lane inhibitor alive. But you are seeing just glimpses of hope for Team Wales to getting back into this game.
If SBTC overstep, it's really easy to punish from Wales as well. They have a really, really good DPS between their two carries. If they stay alive the first few initial seconds of the fight, then Vid will get excited. Lori will be able to get W after W onto the targets, and some of them will hit. At this point of the game, it's something like a 1.5 second cooldown on that ability, and ridiculous damage. It's more than a 1 AP scaling. So Lori, he went for the safety route in terms of items, which makes him even harder to dive on and kill. And now, even though his damage was pretty low compared to other Vigors at this stage of the game, he's now on 4 items. So he might not be the strongest Vigor of all time, but he's still gonna hurt. And all of the enemy team is gonna take punishment from this Vigor, even the tanks.
15 seconds until Drake. Sole point for SBTC. How critical is it that Team Wales deny this Drake away from the chickens?
Giving over that extra HP to work with those extra resistances is so scary. Look at Maokai, he's been scaling into a full-blown tank as well, and that's yet another thing you have to worry about.
It's gone.
So close.
For a second, I thought
Where are they
maybe it
going?
would get stolen away as SBTC moved towards the bottom side of the map, but Mountain Soul secured for SE. And Team Wales are now going to have to deal with even tankier members. They've been struggling to find first kills of a fight already, and it will be so much more difficult. And Team Wales can't even look for an angle at Baron. Maybe they just look for a Death Brush. Maybe they just look to try to find an unlucky member of SBTC and find a pick.
And this pushes the threshold to kill and activate Vid to carry the fights a few more seconds into the future, right? Maybe you need half a second more now to kill someone like DNK if he overextends.
Oh.
That could make the difference.
How long do they wait here, your way?
They need to be careful not to lose all of their inhibitors by overstaying here. They don't have Baron recalls. They're calling off the play. Or are they?
Slater, you clever little girl. To quote a bit of Jurassic Park, Team Wales snuffed out, forced you back away, and SBTC can breathe a little sigh of relief. If any of the members thought, maybe I'll walk this way, now they'll be really thanking their lucky stars that they didn't.
And now there's not much Team Wales can do to wrestle back control in the map. They have so far pushed into their own territory. Baron is going to be hard because there's always the Rise potential. If the enemy team pushes you into your own base and then just uses Rise ult again on the Baron, there's nothing you can do. They're just too fast at taking that objective. So Wales needs to be really, really aware of where to position and not to get into a fight, not to get pushed into their own base a bit too much. Like this from Killer Queen, just sussing out where the enemy team is going. But any engage could be the last one of the series.
Stopwatch claimed by Vit, a bit of extra protection for the hyper carry of Team Wales. But we've seen how big Dia 1 has been, and Dia 1 has been dancing with death this entire game. Baron already down to half health, and Team Wales are going to try to take the fight. 5v3. SBTC are kiting back a lantern given, which will pull Killer Queen out, but the Baron has already been secured. And now SBTC look to turn the fight. It's SBTC who won the engage, and Emperor is popping off as per usual. Nagia on the back foot has been able to find one kill. And the
what's going on?
Over the wall goes Tier 1. Great death sentence, but no more team members for B. And it is all Tier 1 with the damage. SBTC win the fight, and SBTC will surely take the series.
And at the end, it's Dia 1 getting back to playoffs after such a long time, after such a long drought, being banned, he being hyped up as the best player in the VCS in 2020, rightfully so, but never winning his title. It might be his time now. He is gonna have another go at Carti. The legendary mid lane matchup next week in the winners final is gonna be Dia 1 against Carti. And what a stamp of authority on those team fights. The Rice played an almost perfect game. He's now 4-0, and SPDC win the series after game 1 looked like Team Wales is just gonna walk away with a 3-0 quick and make quick work of SPTC. They just stand their ground and win the series in a 3-1 fashion.
When SBTC revamped their roster last year, we thought, okay, how good is this team going to be? How good will Dia 1 be? They lacked a little bit, but with Slater, they just look that much scarier. A fully deserving victory for SBTC as they take down Team Wales 3-1. We'll see Team Wales back in action tomorrow as they face off Cerberus in the first round of the losers bracket. But my God, your way, what a game to end the series.
So many things to take away and so many things to analyze. One of these teams, as you said, Wales, has to play again tomorrow against Cerberus, so it's not a lot of turnaround time. They need to find adaptations. They need to make a quick work of going through the series, analyzing their mistakes, and putting a big red cross at the Baron area to never go there again at 20 minutes, because 2 games in the series were hugely, hugely costly at that Baron.
And Cerberus, if you're watching this, just ban the Jinx. But I think with that, we're going to be handing over to our analyst desk to not only break down Game 4, but break down the series and break down the stream.
Thank you very much, Milky. I am glad to be back, and it was always the chickens. Cocks up in chat. We love to see it, as they will lock themselves in to playing off against Gum. Now, that's a tall order, but I want to start with the losers. It is Team Wales. Marby, I saw some tweets from you. A bit of anguish.
Oh, okay. Look, I have to say we had a nice international experience. We got to get a bit of LCS in there. We had the Dignitas Baron Thoris. We had Xmithy coming out of retirement to play for Team Wales this game. Every bowler missed on that from that Sejuani. And honestly, if any of those had actually landed in the early game, it was so over for SBTC, because they were playing those early fights so close without a Sejuani ultimate most of the time. But eventually it got a bit too much. The Dia factor there just came out huge. And honestly, despite some pretty impressive heroics coming out from Glory, a couple of times some fantastic cages to set up the rest of his team, B also having some good hooks. Coming into the end of it, the biggest factor, even the memeing about the Sejuani missing every ultimate, it was top diff. Nagia was kind of invisible, and Enpa was the most visible person imaginable. That Cassante, he had you always saying Nagia is the best. Cassante said, "All right, bet." All right, bet.
Oh my word! But the interesting thing is we've come to the end of a best of 5, and so much of our analysis comes down to just don't throw, which I hate. I hate that, right? Because what happens if there was a series? This series happens and they don't throw at Baron in 2 different games. Like, there's so many just questions left on the table, and as Milky said, like part of the analysis is just don't do that. Just don't do the dumb thing. And I know that sounds so shallow, but it's so true. So I almost just want to move on and just look at what they're going to be doing tomorrow. And Clockwork, looking at Wales, they're the losers today. Do you think they can get over on Cerberus tomorrow?
It's going to be tough. I still think they have a lot of cards. I mean, they're still a good team. For example, I can see this last game, Glory tried his hardest on the Vigar, and it gave me like a Yado impression from yesterday's series. So this pick is going to be very hot on tomorrow's series. We also know the Zaya and the Wukong, they're going to be very contested. So they need to refine what they want to play around, who they want to play around, and how to manage their picks, because this is going to be a problem against Yado, against Drakthar, and the likes. So I still think, I'm still hopeful for Team Wales. I can't hide that I'm a bit disappointed. Of course, I wanted to see better, but I think I am going to see better from them. I think this is a very crucial reality check that's better, coming early than later. So they have a second chance. It's not the end of the world losing the first series. They just need to keep it together for tomorrow, and then they have a whole week to play again versus the loser of winner's bracket. So yeah, they have plenty of games to put themselves back up.
That they do. And now let's have a look over at the winners of today. It was SBTC who came out ahead in game number 4 to win 3-1. Marby, what was your take on them today? And then please go into, well, they've got to match up against the Juggernauts. Can they do it?
Yeah. What I have to say is that it was a really nice big step up from a lot of the players. Emperor in particular absolutely played out of his goddamn mind. Can't sing his praises enough. And I think that they managed to, they've caught game one. They tried something a bit strange, and then we're like, all right, now we have a pretty good read now. Adapted extremely well. Was played a lot better around objectives, especially game 2 and game 3. They were much more aggressive, taking much more active part in the game to try and secure objectives and make sure that win condition wasn't available for Wales. So that means, and I think that's a really good look. Their mid games looked a lot cleaner. They had a couple of slip ups in this last game, but if they can put on a performance kind of like that, I think they can definitely take a pretty close series against Gum. Can they win? I mean, it's never bet against Gum as kind of a rule, but I think if they can put out a pretty impressive performance and definitely make Gum sweat, I think this has just been a really good, like, games 3 and 4, and even the back half of game 2. They looked really good.
Clockwork, what do you think?
I think this series, like not only on the Rift, but it has been defined by adaptation. The first game was tough for SBTC, and then as the series went on, they found the right tools. They found ways to deal with every threat that Wales could come up with. And I think that being Ren the coach, he already knows very well what GAM are going to do and how they're going to play and strategize in a series. That's a big advantage. I won't be surprised if tomorrow they take it to game 5. As Mabi said, saying they will win is a tall order, but I'm sure that they will put up a show.
Yeah, I completely agree. And sort of just as our last topic before we do throw it on out, player of the series. I think we're all in agreement. Enpa?
X-Smithy. Good old SPTC
the best jungler of the
coming
game,
in clutch. Enpa absolutely, like,
what a fantastic series.
Once he got that lead on field, like, only the first game you can really put against him, and even then he did actually okay, as the rest of the team collapsed around him more than anything. So, and he was huge on Kazante and Del Fiore, so definitely Enpa.
This is seconded. I want to take a little moment to appreciate also Dio1, because during the split, of course, he wasn't the most standout player on non-Tristana champions. Most of the work has been done by Emperor, by sometimes DNK, Slater, also very often the pop-off player. However, Dia, especially, well, this last Rise game, but over the series overall, it was like way better performance that I expected coming into the series. So if he keeps up this level through the whole playoff run, that's one hell of a triple threat that SPDC have.
Well, with that, we will say goodnight. SBTC have locked in their place in the upper bracket finals against GAM, the winner of which will go to the finals, the loser of which will be waiting for the winner of Team Wales versus Cerberus. It's got a lot more exciting action in the VCS playoffs, and we will be back tomorrow, same time, same place, for Team Wales returning to the Rift up against Cerberus, as previously mentioned. We will see you then. We will see you there. This is VCS English. Good night.